Chapter 2300. Wu Dao's original body continued to move forward. All along the way, a few more hellhounds appeared, but they were all annihilated by him, and it was a daunting experience. In this dark, gloomy, and terrifying space, a suffocating atmosphere pervaded at all times. After an unknown period of time, Sky Wolf became more and more restless. If we continue to search aimlessly like this, even if there is no threat, we might not be able to find the remains of the old master, even after billions of years. Sky Wolf could not help but say, "Let's go in this direction. It should be right." Wu Dao's original body did not stop and said lightly, "How do you know the direction is right?" Sky Wolf asked. Wu Dao's original body was about to explain when his spirit perception suddenly alerted him. He looked around and saw red lanterns appearing in the vast black fog around him, and they were rapidly approaching this place. A cold wind blew, and the black fog faded a lot, revealing the figures of many hellhounds. Unknowingly, Wu Dao's original body and Sky Wolf had been surrounded by the hellhounds. Everywhere they looked, they could see the figures of the hellhounds. Whoosh! The hellhounds stared at Wu Dao's original body and Sky Wolf with bloodthirst in their eyes, and a low growl came from the depths of their throats. "What should we do?" Sky Wolf gritted his teeth and asked. "Charge out and follow me." Wu Dao's original body's eyes shone brightly. He moved and took the initiative to charge into the encirclement of the hellhounds in front of him. Roar! The hellhounds also roared and attacked at the same time, charging toward Wu Dao's original body. Wu Dao's original body's blood chi surged, and the sound of waves came from his body. He waved his fists and fought in all directions. Bam! 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 Every punch of Wu Dao's original body burst out with incomparably powerful strength. When they hit the bodies of the hellhounds, their bodies would either explode, or the hellhounds would be smashed into pieces. None of the hellhounds could withstand the fists of Wu Dao's original body. Wu Dao's original body was like a human-shaped divine weapon. He rampaged his way through, carving out a path of blood. He was unstoppable. Sky Wolf followed closely behind, not daring to fall behind. The hellish hounds around them were still swarming toward them. They chased after the martial Dao body and the heavenly wolf, biting and tearing at them. As long as Sky Wolf's movements were slightly slower, it would be drowned by countless hellhounds. In the blink of an eye, it would be torn to pieces. Bang! Wu Dao's true body punched out again, sending a hellish hound flying. His body also trembled slightly. This punch seemed to have landed on the Taiwei mountain. It was incomparably hard. Wu Dao's true body didn't stop walking. He glanced sideways. Just now, the hellhound that was sent flying by his punch landed not far away. It actually shook its head and stood up again. This hellhound was almost completely unscathed after receiving his punch. What Sky Wolf was worried about had already happened. As time passed, the number of Yin souls and malicious ghosts that were alarmed would only increase. The Yin souls and malicious ghosts that appeared later would also become stronger. At this point, there were already hellhounds that could withstand his full-strength punch. If this continued for a while, Yin souls and malicious ghosts that could kill him would definitely appear. However, Wu Dao's true body was puzzled. Why were all the Yin souls and malicious ghosts that appeared now in the form of hellhounds? This should be related to some law of Avicii hell, but he couldn't figure out what the specific connection was. At this moment, he couldn't afford to be distracted. Bang! At this moment, another hellhound pounced. Wu Dao's true body punched back. Who knew that this hellhound's reaction was also extremely fast? It stretched out its claws and blocked Wu Dao's true body's fist. At the same time, it opened its mouth and bit down viciously on Wu Dao's true body's throat. Wu Dao's true body's expression did not change. He exhaled and shouted, causing the hellhound to tremble all over. At the same time, Wu Dao's true body punched the hellhound's head again, causing it to retreat. The hellhound only trembled all over after receiving the punch from Wu Dao's true body. It was not affected at all, and descended to the ground, pouncing forward once more. Wu Dao's true body's charging momentum also stopped. Sky Wolf followed behind. The two men and one wolf paused. Instantly, many hellhounds pounced on them, and a bloody stench assaulted their faces. "It's over." Sky Wolf sighed in his heart. By a freak combination of factors, Although he escaped from Avicii hell and was even reborn, he didn't expect that he would be buried here today. At the thought of this, Skywolf closed his eyes and could only sigh. Fate made fools of people. Right then, Wu Dao's true body chanted a mysterious Buddhist sutra in Sanskrit. The sound of Sanskrit reverberated through the world. Golden Sanskrit words appeared one after another, enveloping Wu Dao's true body, Skywolf and Yin Beichen within, forming a barrier. The Hellhounds had just charged forward when they saw the golden Sanskrit words. All of their expressions changed, and they hurriedly stopped in their tracks. The Hellhounds behind could not control their bodies, and collided with the ones in front of them, causing chaos. Just now, the Hellhound that could fight against Wu Dao's true body, without being disadvantaged, revealed deep fear in its bloodshot eyes when it saw the golden Sanskrit words. Skywolf opened his eyes, and was dumbfounded when he saw such a shocking scene. Countless Hellhounds surrounded the two of them, but none of them dared to take half a step forward. In fact, many Hellhounds had already started fleeing, as though they had seen something extremely terrifying. Some of the Hellhounds sprawled on the ground, trembling and their bloodshot eyes filled with fear. "What's this?" Skywolf opened his mouth and asked instinctively. After pausing for a moment, Skywolf seemed to have thought of something and blurted out, "I know, it's the Wisdom Nirvana Sutra." That's right. Wu Dao's true body did not hide anything either. He decided to head to Hell of Avicii, this time to search for the Fiend Buddhist Sutra. His greatest reliance was actually the Wisdom Nirvana Sutra. Hell of Avicii was created by the Empyrean Emperor with his own body, and the Empyrean Emperor's weapon was the Hell-Suppressing Cauldron. The Hell-Suppressing Cauldron was engraved with the Wisdom Nirvana Sutra. Most of the ghosts in Hell of Avicii had died at the hands of the Empyrean Emperor, so they definitely had a deep understanding of the Wisdom Nirvana Sutra. Their fear of the Empyrean Emperor had long seeped into their souls. Even if they became ghosts and condensed flesh and blood to become hellhounds, they would still be afraid when they suddenly heard the sutra of the Empyrean Emperor from back then. As expected, after Wu Dao's true body chanted the Sanskrit words of the Wisdom Nirvana Sutra, all the hellhounds retreated, not daring to step forward. "Let's go," Wu Dao's true body urged in a low voice as he sped forward. The hellhounds in front opened up a path, not daring to block them. Even a few hellhounds with powerful auras looked hesitant and did not rashly step forward. Chapter 2301. Wu Dao's true body was surrounded by the golden Sanskrit of the Prajna Sutra. He led Skywolf and Yin Beichen out of the hellhounds' encirclement and ran forward. Most of the hellhounds didn't dare to continue chasing. However, there were still a dozen hellhounds following Wu Dao's true body. They were restless, and the bloody light in their eyes grew brighter and brighter. With the protection of the Seamless Emperor's ancient sutra, "There's no need to run so fast, right?" Sirius said while panting. "These creatures in the Avicii hell are afraid of the Seamless Emperor, not this ancient sutra." Wu Dao's true body was extremely calm. He said in a low voice, "They're retreating now because this ancient sutra contains the Tao and laws of the Seamless Emperor. As long as they realize that I'm not the Seamless Emperor at all, and that I'm far from his terrifying methods, these creatures of hell will still charge forward." Skywolf looked back at the hellhounds behind them, and was secretly speechless. He also realized that Wu Dao's true body was right. The Prajna Sutra could only temporarily intimidate these creatures of hell, but it couldn't suppress and subdue them. Not only that, when these creatures of hell realized that Wu Dao's true body wasn't a threat at all, it would only arouse the resentment in their hearts. In the past, these hellish creatures were all peak powerhouses of the upper realms. Among them, there were many kings and emperors, but they were suppressed by the infernal emperor in the Avicii hell, suffering endless pain and suffering. They didn't even have the chance to reincarnate. In this dark and gloomy hell, the ghosts of these powerhouses had long lost their former glory. They had even evolved into such ugly and ferocious hellhounds. One could imagine the resentment in their hearts. And this resentment was very likely to be vented on Wu Dao's true body. Skywolf asked again, "When will we stop running like this? Besides, how do you know that we can find the old master's corpse in this direction?" Wu Dao's true body said, "After entering this place, I used the Devil Discipline Sutra and activated the Mask of Mara. In this direction, I felt an aura of the same origin. Emperor Bosun's death was relatively recent. In other words, even if he had already died, there might still be some remnant aura of the Tao in his corpse. Moreover, the Mask of Mara was originally refined from Emperor Bosun's clone. It naturally had a natural connection to Emperor Bosun. Yes, this is a good idea. Skywolf also understood this logic, and his spirit was greatly lifted. At least he saw a glimmer of hope. If they could find Emperor Bosun's corpse and obtain the Devil Discipline Sutra, they could find a way out of this place. The longer they stayed in the Avicii hell, the slimmer their chances of escape. The dozen or so hellhounds behind him were closing in on him. Suddenly, it SSSSSS. S's true body. Tao. SSSSSSSS2. SSS true's true. S's. The few hellhounds in front of him couldn't dodge in time, and were knocked to the ground. One of the hellhounds was even bitten in half at the waist, and blood splattered everywhere. The three-headed hound didn't even look at him. Its 6 blood-red eyes were fixed on Wu Dao's true body from beginning to end, seething with killing intent. Feeling the energy fluctuations coming from the three-headed hound, Wu Dao guessed that he might not even be able to withstand a single strike from this hound. The black fog ahead was getting thicker and thicker. With the help of the golden Sanskrit characters of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, Wu Dao's main body could faintly see what seemed to be a tall and steep black stone wall in front of him. It was rugged with strange rocks and covered in blood. This kind of black stone wall was exactly the same as the stone wall in Taiwei Mountain. It seemed that they had reached the end of Avicii hell. Wu Dao's main body arrived in front of the black stone wall and ran along its edge. The three-headed hellhound was getting closer and closer. At this moment, a huge hole appeared on the black stone wall in front of them. It was swallowing and spitting out thick black fog. They had no way out. Wu Dao's main body hesitated for a moment before charging in with Heavenly Wolf. After charging into the hole, Wu Dao's main body slowed down and looked back. Through the black fog, he could vaguely see the three-headed hound standing in front of the pitch-black hole. However, it seemed to be afraid and didn't charge in with him. After temporarily escaping danger, Wu Dao's main body and Heavenly Wolf heaved a sigh of relief. There was a long tunnel in this cave. As Wu Dao's main body and Heavenly Wolf continued to go deeper, the surrounding black fog gradually faded. Before long, Wu Dao's main body felt a soft sensation under his feet, as if he had stepped on some sand. He looked down and saw a thick layer of grayish-white dust on the ground that led all the way to the end of the tunnel. Wu Dao's main body lowered his head, grabbed a handful of grayish-white dust, and gently twisted it. It's bone ash. Wu Dao's main body frowned slightly. Countless living beings had died in this tunnel. Now there were no corpses left, only piles of bone ash. He couldn't even deduce the identity of these living beings. At this moment, something seemed to move in the bone ash in the palm of Wu Dao's main body. Immediately after, the expression of Wu Dao's main body changed slightly, and he suddenly threw away the bone ash in his hand. From the bone ash, an ant the size of a grain of rice crawled out and quickly dived into the bone ash, disappearing. Just now, this ant had bitten Wu Dao's main body. The scary thing was that Wu Dao's main body felt a trace of pain. His current physical body was tyrannical and invincible. Even if it was a connate heaven-grade Dharma treasure, or even some spiritual Dharma treasures of perfected immortals, they might not be able to hurt him. However, this small ant had bitten him and hurt him. Ant, Heavenly Wolf also noticed this scene and exclaimed. It was so frightened that its tone changed. Back then, our old master was drowned by a swarm of ants and died from being eaten. Heavenly Wolf's voice was filled with deep fear, as it recalled the scene back then. Seems like this is the right path. Wu Dao's main body took a deep breath, and continued forward with Heavenly Wolf. Since he had seen the ant, it meant that he was getting closer to Emperor Lord Bosun's corpse. The terrain of the cave was extremely complicated. It was like a palace that extended in all directions, with countless intersecting tunnels. Some of the tunnels were connected. At the end of some of the tunnels there might be dead ends. Without a map, one might not be able to find a way out even after hundreds or thousands of years. This place was completely different from the place just now. It was more like a gigantic maze. Thankfully, Wu Dao's main body was constantly channeling the Fiend Aversion Sutra and advancing in a certain direction based on his perception of Emperor Lord Bo Sun's Dao techniques. Although he took a detour occasionally, the direction was correct. The perception of his Dao techniques was also getting stronger. Chapter 2302. After walking for an unknown period of time, Wu Dao's true body paused. Heavenly Wolf's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately tensed up, becoming vigilant. He knew that Wu Dao's true body would not stop for no reason. He must have sensed some danger. However, Sky Wolf's eyes and ears were alert in all directions, but he still couldn't see any danger. In the tunnel they were in, there were only the three of them. There were no other signs of life, and the surroundings were quiet. Wu Dao's true body raised his arm and slowly lifted the sleeve of his robe. What was revealed under his clothes was not a body of flesh and blood, but a dense swarm of pitch-black ants. Wu Dao's true body tore open the clothes on his chest. It was also pitch-black inside, and they were all ants. 2 blood-red lights shone on their small heads. Unknowingly, these ants had already crawled all over Wu Dao's true body through his clothes. However, Wu Dao's true body did not notice at all. Psst! When he saw this scene, Heavenly Wolf gasped and his fur stood on end. The moment his fur stood on end, some tiny things fell off Heavenly Wolf's body as well. Heavenly Wolf suddenly realized something, and a chill ran down his spine. Even Wu Dao's true body did not notice it. His body must have been crawling with these ants long ago. At the thought of this, Heavenly Wolf felt his scalp tingle, and his entire body feel uncomfortable. He twisted his body frantically, wanting to shake off the ants on his body. These ants seemed to have realized that they had been exposed and suddenly launched an attack. Ah! Heavenly Wolf let out a tragic cry. Tens of thousands of ants bit down on his body at the same time, instantly dyeing his massive body red. Heavenly Wolf trembled all over, and almost fainted from the pain. Wu Dao's true body also felt a sharp pain. However, his expression did not change, as he chanted the perfection of Nirvana Sutra once more. Golden Sanskrit appeared and enveloped him, Heavenly Wolf, and Yen Beichen. Whoosh! On their bodies, the ants seemed to have been frightened by something. Like black ink, they fell off their bodies rapidly and fled in all directions. Not long after, Wu Dao's main body, Heavenly Wolf, and Yen Beichen no longer had any ants on them. Wu Dao's main body had a strong physical body, so he didn't suffer any injuries. However, Sky Wolf and Yen Beichen were bitten by the ants just now. Yen Beichen was already on the verge of death. After being attacked by the ant swarm, the life force in his body became even weaker. He could die at any time. An indescribable aura of fear filled the tunnel. Even Wu Dao's true body was somewhat affected. If he had not been on the Taoist heart stairs with Qinglian's true body, before entering the Avicii hell to temper his Taoist heart, his Taoist heart might have been shaken by now. The Avicii hell was terrifying and sinister. Unknown creatures, unknown environment, everything was unknown. These hell ants could even hide from Wu Dao's true body's spiritual perception. Or rather, in the Avicii hell, Wu Dao's true body's spiritual perception was lowered to the extreme, and was almost useless. At the side, Heavenly Wolf was so frightened by this turn of events that it trembled all over, as though it was recalling the events of the past. The situation was not optimistic. Just now, the hell ants were clearly not strong enough. If the strength of the ant swarm was raised to another level, Wu Dao's true body would not be able to defend against such a massive number of them, no matter how strong it was. If an ant king or queen of the ant swarm appeared, Wu Dao's true body took a deep breath and said softly, "Hurry, let's go. We have to find Emperor Bo Sun's corpse as soon as possible." Following the senses of the mask of Emoluo, he advanced continuously in the tunnel. Gritting its teeth, Heavenly Wolf braced itself and followed closely behind. After passing through a few more tunnels, Wu Dao's true body arrived at an intersection of many tunnels. "Master, look around." Heavenly Wolf's voice sounded with a hint of trembling. Countless hellish ants were surging over from the surrounding passageways, filling the entire passageway like a terrifying black torrent. The black torrent surged to the end of the tunnel, and suddenly stopped. surrounding Wu Dao's true body, and Heavenly Wolf at the intersection of the tunnels. In all directions, all exits had been blocked. The ants in this maze were gradually getting used to the golden Sanskrit words, released by Wu Dao's true body. These hell ants were the same as the hellhounds from before. When they saw the golden Sanskrit words, they instinctively thought that it was the Seamless Emperor, or some successor of the Seamless Emperor. However, as time passed, they realized that the golden Sanskrit words were of no threat to them. The purple-robed cultivator was rather weak as well. Under the orders of the Ant King and Queen, the Hell Ants were prepared to launch their final attack against Wu Dao's true body. It's over. We really can't hold on this time. Heavenly Wolf gulped. With so many black torrents surging over and drowning them, they might not even be left with their bones in the blink of an eye. Follow me. Right then, Wu Dao's true body hollered and charged towards a tunnel. Heavenly Wolf did not have time to think, and could only follow instinctively. Boom! Many ants in the tunnel swarmed forward, and battered the barrier formed by the golden Sanskrit words endlessly. The golden barrier grew dimmer and dimmer. In the end, the golden light was completely drowned by the black torrents. Snap! The golden barrier shattered. The eyes of Wu Dao's true body shone brightly as he channeled his bloodline to its limits. His blood chi surged, and his entire body seemed to have transformed into a gigantic furnace that could incinerate everything and refine heaven and earth. Bloodline phenomenon, heaven and earth furnace. Sizzle! The black ants surged forward, and were burned into billowing smoke as a large number of them died. However, the hell ants did not seem to know what fear was, and continued to surge forward, charging at the heaven and earth furnace of Wu Dao's true body. Although the heaven and earth furnace was strong, it could not defend against the attacks of hundreds of millions of ants. Furthermore, the initial ants were weak, and could be incinerated by the heaven and earth furnace. Before long, more hell ants appeared. Each of them was strong, and even with flames burning on their bodies, they possessed immense vitality, and continued to fight. I can't hold on any longer. Heavenly Wolf knew that the moment the flames on Wu Dao's true body extinguished, it would be the moment of their deaths. Wu Dao's true body led Heavenly Wolf, and stared at the torrent of ants as they advanced through the tunnel. All of a sudden, the martial Dao body felt the pressure in front of him lighten. He rushed out of the passageway, and stepped into a large hall with a circular dome. Heavenly Wolf carried Yanbeichen and scrambled out as well. After entering the hall, the black ants continued to swarm in the passageway behind them, but not a single hell ant stepped into this place. The flames on Wu Dao's true body had already been extinguished as well. If they were any slower, the two of them and the wolf would have been buried in the ants. Here, here. Heavenly Wolf's voice suddenly turned agitated. I'm familiar with this place. This should be the burial ground of the old master. Chapter 2303. Wu Dao's original body looked over. It was a circular hall with a radius of a few thousand feet. The surrounding walls were black and smooth, without any traces of knives or axes. It seemed to be formed naturally. Wu Dao's original body had seen many such circular halls in this maze. The structure was similar, but the size was different. At this moment, a thought flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's original body. The maze they were in had a complicated terrain. Ravines crisscrossed, forming corridors that extended in all directions. The buildings were arranged in rows, like a huge ant's nest. This maze was clearly different from the space they had fallen in. Whether it was the terrain, the environment, or the hell creatures inside, there was a clear difference. Wu Dao's original body had entered this ant's nest through a secret passage. The hellhound that was chasing them seemed to be restricted or afraid, so it did not step into this place. There were no traces of hell ants in the space where the hellhound was. This was a little strange. Why would there be such a clear boundary in the Avicii hell? Wu Dao's original body looked back at the retreating hell ants in the corridor, and frowned slightly. Logically speaking, they should not have left the ant's nest. This was because the style of the hall they were in was similar to many of the buildings in the ant's nest. Moreover, Emperor Bosun had died here. This meant that this place was also the territory of the hell ants. But why did these hell ants not go forward and all retreat? At that moment, Tian Lang's expression changed. He slowly walked forward, and his eyes were filled with sorrow. The hall was dimly lit. Not far ahead, the outline of a figure could be vaguely seen. It was sitting cross-legged. There seemed to be a sharp weapon stuck in the black rock in front of it, shining with a cold light. Looking at Sky Wolf's expression, it could be inferred that this figure was Emperor Bo Sun. Wu Dao's original body temporarily put aside the doubts in his heart and walked toward Emperor Bo Sun's corpse. As he got closer, Wu Dao's original body could see more clearly. Emperor Bo Sun was wearing a tattered robe. His head was lowered, and his long hair covered his face. As expected of a great emperor, Wu Dao's main body sighed inwardly. Even after so many years, Emperor Lord Bo Sun's long hair was still intact. The corpse looked rather emaciated. It was probably because the hell ants had eaten all of Emperor Bo Sun's flesh and blood. However, the bones of a great emperor were so tough that even hellish ants wouldn't be able to chew through them. That's why they left behind such a complete corpse. Old master, I'm back to see you. The heavenly wolf looked sorrowful as it lay on the ground, sobbing softly. Back then, he was the demon king of 7 emotions. Later on, he became the artifact spirit of the Mask of Emoluo. He had always been by Bo Sun's side. Wu Dao's main body recalled how Imperial Monarch Bo Sun was besieged by over 20 Imperial Monarch experts all those years ago and was sent into the Avicii Hell. He sighed with emotion as well. Senior, sorry to disturb you. Wu Dao's true body bowed to Bo Sun's corpse. Where's the Buddhist Sutra Association? Wu Dao's main body circled around Bo Sun's corpse and could not help but ask with a frown when he did not see any traces of a storage bag. I don't know either. The heavenly wolf shook its head gently. Wu Dao's main body's gaze shifted to a sharp blade that was stabbed into the ground not far away from Bo Sun's corpse. Judging from its shape, it should be a long saber with a single edge. Even after so many years, the saber still shone with a sharp edge and emitted a demonic power that could bewitch one's heart. Wu Dao's main body stepped forward and reached for the hilt of the saber, wanting to pull it out. Don't touch it. Right then, the heavenly wolf seemed to have thought of something and exclaimed. However, the heavenly wolf's reaction was slightly slower as he returned to the old haunt and saw Bo Sun's corpse. By the time he reminded Wu Dao's main body had already gripped the hilt of the saber. A strange power struck the Dao heart of Wu Dao's main body. Streams of pitch-black fiend qi spread rapidly along the arm of Wu Dao's main body, like countless pitch-black spirit snakes. In the blink of an eye, they covered the entire body of Wu Dao's main body. Wu Dao's main body closed his eyes motionlessly. Black qi coiled around his body, and he looked like a fiend celestial from hell. Beneath his cold silver mask, there was a conflicted expression. The moment he gripped the hilt of the saber, Wu Dao's main body felt a boom in his mind. It was as though the faces of women appeared before his eyes one after another. Dai Yu, Ji Yaoxue, Demoness Ji, Princess Yufei. Every single one of them was devastatingly beautiful like fairies and exuded endless charm. Demoness Ji twisted her body, as though she could evoke the most primitive impulse in the depths of her heart. Zimo, Ji Yaoxue called out softly. The martial Dao body had a confused look on his face as he responded subconsciously. The third gift is me. Dai Yu's voice sounded. Bookworm, have you forgotten about me? Demoness Ji had a sorrowful expression. Wu Dao's main body's ears were filled with the calls of those women. Some were gentle, some were cold, and some were light. They were pleasing to the ears like the chirping of birds. A thought flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's main body. Just listening to their voices every day was an unimaginable bliss. A faint fragrance emanated from the bodies of the women, causing one to be mesmerized. Is this an illusion? Even though Wu Dao's main body knew that something was amiss, he could not break free. He released many methods to resist the illusions, wanting to break free from the illusion before him, but to no avail. Demoness Ji stepped forward and kissed him gently on the lips. Wu Dao's main body shuddered as though he was electrocuted. His consciousness sank once more, and he wanted to reach out and embrace Demoness Ji. Right then, Wu Dao's main body's gaze landed on Dai Yu's face and met her gaze. Instantly, Wu Dao's main body was jolted awake. This isn't an illusion. Wu Dao's main body's heart lit up as he recalled the concept of the 6 desires in the Buddhist monasteries. The 6 desires were the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and intent. The eyes were the desire to see and covet beauty and strange objects. The ears were the desire to hear and covet beauty and praise. The nose was the desire to smell and covet fragrance. The tongue was the desire to taste and covet delicacies. The body was the desire to touch and covet comfort and enjoyment. The intent was the desire to desire and covet fame and fortune. The mortal world was turbulent, and all living beings in the world could not break free from the shackles of the 6 desires. They were either 1 or 6 of them. The scenes that Wu Dao's main body saw just now were not illusions. Instead, the power of the fiend's saber triggered the 6 desires in his body and created various scenes to confuse his mind. Book Abode Reading Website. Chapter 2304. Suddenly, streaks of red light shone from the body of Wu Dao's true body and burned brighter. The moment the red light came into contact with the pitch-black fiend qi on his body, it burned instantly. In the blink of an eye, Wu Dao's true body turned into a gigantic human-shaped fireball. The scarlet flames on his body burned fiercely, causing his hair, skin, flesh, organs, and bones to turn red and crystal clear. Karmic fire incineration. The Heavenly Wolf once said that Emperor Lord Bo Sun had 2 emperor weapons back then. One of them was the Mask of Mara formed by the 7 Emotions clone. The other was the Fiend's Saber created by the 6 Desires clone, the Kata Saber. The Mask of Mara contained the power of the 7 Emotions. Only obsessions could sever the 7 emotions. As for the Kata Saber, it contained the power of the 6 desires. Only the Buddhist karmic fire could incinerate the 6 desires. Although Wu Dao's true body did not know about the Buddhist Karmic Sutra, he knew about the Red Lotus karmic fire. The karmic fire was the best at suppressing the power of the 6 desires. Sizzle! The pitch-black fiend qi on Wu Dao's true body let out a series of strange sounds and billowed with green smoke under the burning of the Red Lotus karmic fire. Before long, the fiend qi was completely incinerated by the Red Lotus karmic fire. At the same time, a sutra appeared in the mind of Wu Dao's true body. He skimmed through it and was delighted. The sutra recorded the karma of the Buddhist sects and even the cultivation method of the karmic fire. If he was not wrong, that should be the content of the Buddhist Karmic Sutra. To think that the Buddhist Karmic Sutra was hidden in the fiend's saber. At the same time, Wu Dao's true body was glad as well. Thankfully, he was the one who came into contact with the Kata Saber first. If Yen Beichen had come into contact with the Kata Saber, the power nurtured by the fiend's saber alone would have been enough to destroy Yen Beichen. Right now, Yen Beichen was severely injured and did not know about the karmic fire. Therefore, he could not defend against the power of the 6 desires triggered by the Kata Saber. Now that Wu Dao's true body obtained the Buddhist Karmic Sutra, he could impart it to Yen Beichen. That way, Yen Beichen would not be in danger. This was probably a test left behind by Emperor Bo Sun. If someone could withstand the power of the 6 desires in the Kata blade, they would be qualified to receive his inheritance. The karmic fire on Wu Dao's body gradually extinguished, and he opened his eyes. Beside him, Sky Wolf was dumbfounded. "Are you okay?" Sirius probed. Wu Dao shook his head slightly. "He is indeed a pervert," Tian Lang murmured before answering. "This is the Kata Saber, Old Master's monarch weapon. Apart from Old Master, anyone who touches the Kata Saber will suffer a backlash from the power of 6 desires inside. I've already obtained the Buddhist Sutra." Wu Dao's main body stepped forward and carried Yen Beichen down from the Heavenly Wolf's back. He laid him flat on the ground and called out softly. Yen Beichen's eyes were tightly shut, and his breathing was weak. He was still unconscious. Wu Dao's main body used his spirit consciousness to stimulate Yen Beichen's sea of consciousness, but there was no reaction. Yen Beichen's sea of consciousness was completely occupied by fiend qi. His essence spirit was filled with cracks. Previously, his injuries were only temporarily stabilized by the fiend qi, but now, he could no longer hold on. Yen Beichen's essence spirit did not have much life aura, and was completely drained. Wu Dao's main body took out a bunch of elixirs and fed them to Yen Beichen. He called out continuously, trying to wake Yen Beichen up. However, an hour passed and Yin Beichen still showed no signs of waking up. He's done for. Sky Wolf shook his head slightly. Actually, he's almost a dead man in his current state. It's only because he cultivated the Fiend Aversion Sutra that he managed to survive until now. Wu Dao's main body clenched his fists and did not say a word. He took a huge risk to break into the Avicii hell, and finally got the Buddhist Sutra. However, Yin Beichen could not wake up. Even if he had the Buddhist Sutra, it was useless. Let's bury him here, Sky Wolf said. To be buried in the same grave as the old master, he can die without regrets. Wu Dao's main body was still silent. He looked at Yin Beichen, who was lying on the ground. Suddenly, his expression changed and he frowned. There seemed to be some scratches on the ground under Yin Beichen. Wu Dao's main body gently moved Yin Beichen away and stared at the ground with rapt attention. He saw that the ground was covered with scratches, which seemed to depict a scene. In this space, the surrounding stone walls were pitch-black rocks that were steep and sinister. It was similar to the situation in the Avicii hell. In this space, corpses were strewn everywhere and blood was stained. Many cultivators were trapped within and were shouting, as though they were struggling. Beside these cultivators was a dense swarm of giant bees. They surrounded this group of cultivators and attacked them crazily. On the corpses at the side, some of the cultivators were riddled with holes. It was a tragic sight. Wu Dao's main body shifted his gaze and walked to the side. Before long, he caught sight of another painting on the ground. The scene in this painting was blurry and filled with black fog. However, scarlet blood lights appeared one after another in the black fog, resembling red lanterns. In some of the black fog, the figures of the red lanterns appeared completely. They were the hellhounds that Wu Dao's main body encountered previously. It was similar to the previous painting. In this picture, there were also many cultivators trapped in this place and attacked crazily by the hellhounds. Some of the cultivators lay on the ground with pained expressions. Their stomachs had been hollowed out by the hellhounds. A hellhound bit on the person's bloody intestines and trampled on him with a ferocious gaze. Another cultivator had his lungs dug out by an infernal hound. He fell to the ground, unable to get up as blood flowed out of his body. This was a scene from hell that was bloody and savage. It was unbearable to watch. Wu Dao's main body continued searching the surroundings. Not far from this painting, he caught sight of another painting. In this painting, the terrain was complicated, and there were countless ravines that crisscrossed like a gigantic maze. The maze was filled with waves of black water. If he was not wrong, it should be the Hell Ant Colony. This painting also depicted a group of cultivators being crazily attacked by a swarm of hell ants. In the blink of an eye, wherever the Hell Ant Colony passed, all that was left of the cultivators were skeletons. Wu Dao's main body stood up and heaved a sigh of relief. He discovered that the positions of the three paintings were somewhat unique. They formed a circle around Emperor Lord Bo Sun's corpse. Wu Dao's main body circled around Emperor Lord Bo Sun's corpse and continued searching around him. Indeed, behind the painting of the Hell Ant Colony, he caught sight of another painting. In this painting, it was still a scene of hell that was filled with sinister qi. A group of cultivators was attacked by a slender purple living being. Indeed, behind the painting of the Hell Ant Colony, there was another painting. In this painting, it was still a scene of hell that was filled with sinister qi. A group of cultivators was attacked by a slender purple living being. Chapter 2305. In the 16 Hells maps, there were vengeful ghosts ripping out tendons and bones, hell crows pecking at hearts and livers, boiling hot oil, heads, tongues and teeth. Giant bees gathered, ant swarms surged, vicious dogs patrolled, venomous scorpions lurked, purple snakes slithered about. Every single hell's map was different. Different environments and different living beings of hell. The only similarity was that the cultivators and living beings that were caught in them would suffer immense pain. They would either be tortured or torn apart by the living beings of hell. None of them had a good ending. These 16 drawings were simple, but they vividly portrayed the ghastly terror of the infernal realm. Although Wu Dao's true body did not experience many of the scenes in hell personally, he could still sense the struggles and pain of the living beings within through the hell's maps. It was not easy to leave marks on the hard rock ground. To be able to create such a hell's map was proof of the skills of the painter. Wu Dao's true body felt that something was amiss. There was something strange about this. However, his mind was preoccupied with Yen Beichen, and his emotions were in a mess. He could not figure it out for the time being. Could there be 16 different regions in Hell of Avicii? Heavenly Wolf followed behind Wu Dao's true body, and said thoughtfully after looking at the 16 Hell's maps. Wu Dao's true body fell into deep thought and remained silent. Strange. Heavenly Wolf circled around Emperor Lord Bo Sun's corpse before saying, "These 16 Hell's maps were drawn around the old master's corpse. Could there be a deeper meaning?" Wu Dao's true body's heart skipped a beat, and he suddenly asked, "You guys didn't see these 16 Hell's maps when you first landed here?" "Of course not." Heavenly Wolf shook his head instinctively. Wu Dao's true body suddenly thought of a possibility, and his expression changed starkly beneath the silver mask. Instantly, his heart felt as though it was gripped by an invisible hand, suffocating him. After a moment of silence, Wu Dao's true body asked slowly, "Then, who drew these 16 Hell's maps?" "How would I know?" Heavenly Wolf replied without hesitation. He still didn't understand the hidden meaning behind the martial Dao body's words. "I drew it." Another voice sounded. It was calm and gentle, neither light nor heavy. This was not the voice of Wu Dao's true body, nor was it the voice of the Heavenly Wolf. In this spacious hall, there was a third living person. Moreover, this voice had come from right beside them. In the blink of an eye, Sky Wolf felt a chill spread all over his body. All the fur on his body stood on end. His mouth was wide open, and his eyes were full of fear. His body trembled, as if he had thought of the most terrifying thing in the world. Wu Dao's main body had already expected this, but when he heard the third voice, he still felt his blood run cold, and his mind tremble. Wu Dao slowly turned around, and looked in the direction of Bo Sun's corpse. Sky Wolf also turned its head, its eyes filled with fear. It was a simple action, but it was extremely difficult for Sky Wolf to do it. Its flesh and blood seemed to have stiffened and no longer listened to its orders. The withered corpse, that was sitting cross-legged, slowly raised its head. The long hair in front of its forehead gradually slid to the sides, revealing a thin face. The face did not look old. In terms of age, it could only be considered middle-aged. It did not have a beard, had handsome facial features, and had clear eyes. Although his clothes were ragged and his hair was unkempt, his face was solemn and dignified. The first impression he gave off was that of a virtuous monk with profound Buddhist dharma. The middle-aged man's gaze was gentle, and he had a smile on his face that seemed to be able to calm one's mind. Even so, Sky Wolf was already paralyzed with fear. Its limbs were pressed tightly to the ground as it trembled. Its head was lowered, and it did not even dare to look at the middle-aged man. Old master." Heavenly Wolf's voice was trembling. He stuttered as he spoke those 3 simple words. It was only at this moment that Wu Dao's true body confirmed that this middle-aged man was Bo Sun from back then. However, he never expected that after so many years, Bo Sun was still alive after being sent to Avicii by more than 20 imperial emperors. When Wu Dao's true body realized that Bo Sun might still be alive, his first reaction was that Sky Wolf had set a trap to lure him here. However, on second thought, Sky Wolf was very resistant and afraid of Avicii, and did not want to return at all. Furthermore, from Sky Wolf's current reaction, he could deduce that Sky Wolf knew nothing about this. Otherwise, Sky Wolf would not be so frightened. It was impossible to say that he was not afraid of the legendary Bo Sun, an imperial emperor who had come back from the dead. Wu Dao's true body could only try his best to remain calm and composed. If Bo Sun wanted to kill him, he would definitely not be able to resist. Fortunately, Bo Sun did not seem as terrifying as he had imagined. He was far from the legendary image of a devil. "You are the 7 emotions, right?" Bo Sun said softly. Back then, the demon king of 7 emotions became an artifact spirit. In this life, he was reborn with the body of Sky Wolf. Bo Sun could tell at a glance. "Why, yes, it's me," Sky Wolf replied with a trembling voice. Just now you're calling me old master. Does that mean that you already have a new master? Bo Sun asked with a smile, as though he was not angry. Sky Wolf shuddered. Although Bo Sun was smiling, Sky Wolf was so frightened that he was about to cry. Old master, I thought that you had already died so. Sky Wolf's voice had a hint of sobbing as he hurriedly explained. If I knew that you were still alive, I would definitely not betray you and find another master. It's nothing. Bo Sun waved his hand gently and said with a smile. It's your fortune to be able to regain your freedom and cultivate anew. Why would I blame you? Sky Wolf was stunned for a moment. The fear in his eyes did not diminish at all as he lay on the ground obediently, not daring to move. You are the current master of the 7 emotions, right? Bo Sun turned his gaze towards Wu Dao's true body and asked with a smile. Yes. Wu Dao's true body hesitated for a moment before nodding and bowing. I am Araki Takeshi. Greetings, senior. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Bo Sun nodded slightly with a look of admiration in his eyes. You're able to withstand the power of 6 desires in the Kata Saber at such a young age. Truly, the younger generation will surpass us in time. It's not a disgrace for the 7 emotions to be able to follow you from now on. Wu Dao's true body was stunned. The Bo Sun before him looked more like a benevolent elder without any hint of ferocity. His gaze was gentle, and he was magnanimous. If not for the fact that he knew the other party's identity, Wu Dao's true body would have thought that the other party was an esteemed monk of the Buddhist monasteries. Sky Wolf sprawled at the side and stole a glance at Wu Dao's true body with fear in his eyes. He had countless things he wanted to say. However, he did not dare to act rashly with Bo Sun around. He did not even dare to think of anything else. Chapter 2306. Old Master, how did you? Sirius gulped and could not help but ask. Back then, I saw with my own eyes that you were eaten by countless hell ants and died. Aren't you happy that I'm still alive? Emperor Bo Sun asked with a faint smile. No. Sirius shook his head like a rattled drum and said decisively, I'm just too happy. If I knew that you were still alive, I would have returned long ago. Very good, how obedient. Emperor Bo Sun chuckled and extended his skinny palm to stroke the long silver fur on Sirius's forehead. With every stroke, Sirius's body would tremble, as though he had taken a trip to the gates of hell. Why are you here? Emperor Bo Sun asked. Wu Dao's true body pondered for a moment and did not hide anything. He said in a deep voice, I have a close friend whose essence spirit was severely injured. Fortunately, he cultivated the Fiend Aversion Sutra to save his life temporarily. But later on his injuries flared up. Therefore I wanted to find the Buddhist Sutra. Perhaps only the complete Fiend Aversion Sutra can save his life. That's right. Emperor Bo Sun glanced at Yin Beichen who was lying on the ground and nodded. Cultivating my Fiend Aversion Sutra can indeed heal his injuries. However, he's now severely injured and unconscious. Although I obtained the legacy of the Buddhist Sutra, I can't wake him up. Wu Dao's true body hesitated for a moment before bowing deeply to Bo Sun and saying, If this junior dares to be so bold, senior, please lend a hand. If there was anyone in this world who could save Yin Beichen, only Emperor Bo Sun could do it. Even if other emperor lords had the ability, it would be too late. They would not dare to enter the Avicii hell. There's no need for that. Emperor Bo Sun smiled. Emperor Bo Sun raised his palm. Although it was just a slight gesture, Wu Dao's true body felt a tremendous force lift him up and prevent him from bowing. Saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda, Emperor Bo Sun said. Even if you didn't ask, I would have saved him. Thank you, senior. Wu Dao's true body was overjoyed, and he bowed again to express his thanks. Emperor Bo Sun said with a smile, What's more, this junior has an extremely deep understanding of the Fiendish Sutra. His obsession has already seeped deep into his bones. I imparted the Buddhist scripture to him. It can be considered as leaving behind a legacy for myself. Pausing for a moment, Emperor Bo Sun looked at Wu Dao's true body and said, Although you also cultivate the fiendish mantra, your comprehension of this cultivation method is clearly inferior to this person. Bo Sun's eyesight was indeed terrifyingly brilliant. Wu Dao's true body cultivated the Wu Dao, which was different from the Taos of the immortals, Buddhas, and fiends. But even so, Emperor Bo-sun could tell that Wu Dao's true body had cultivated the Fiendish Sutra. Furthermore, he could tell that Wu Dao's true body hadn't cultivated the Fiendish Sutra deeply. This was indeed the case. Wu Dao's true body cultivated the Fiendish Sutra purely for the sake of controlling the Mask of Mara. His main goal was to integrate the Taos of the Fiendish Sutra into Wu Dao's furnace to deduce his own Taos and Taos. However, he's unconscious. Senior, may I know how you can wake him up to cultivate the Buddhist scripture? Wu Dao's true body asked again. There's no need to wait for him to wake up. Emperor Bo-sun smiled faintly and said, I'll use an enlightenment mystic technique that can directly impart the Fiendish Sutra to him. Enlightenment mystic technique. Wu Dao's eyes lit up. Over the years, he had browsed through countless sutras and mystic techniques, and had heard of the existence of enlightenment mystic techniques. This mystic technique was equivalent to a method of imparting cultivation methods. Not only would it impart the cultivation method, but it would also impart all of one's comprehension of the cultivation method to another person. Therefore, there was the saying of being enlightened and having a sudden flash of insight. The enlightenment mystic technique had extremely high requirements for the cultivation realm of the caster, and would even cause considerable damage to the caster. Therefore, almost no one would impart cultivation methods in this way. Unexpectedly, Emperor Bo-sun was going to use the enlightenment mystic technique in order to save Yin Beichen. I'll remember Senior's kindness in my heart. Wu Dao's true body was moved. Emperor Bo-sun smiled faintly and said, You're wearing the Mask of Mara and can withstand the power of 6 desires in the Kata Saber. Your aptitude and talent are both excellent. However, if I'm looking for a successor to inherit my legacy, I think he's better. Emperor Bo-sun had already regarded Yin Beichen as his successor. Sky Wolf had once said that although Emperor Bo-sun ruled the entire demon region and was invincible in battle, he did not have any successors or disciples. Unexpectedly, Yin Beichen was chosen by Emperor Bo-sun as his successor when he was on the verge of death in the Avicii Hell. This was a fortuitous opportunity that belonged to Yin Beichen. Emperor Bo-sun waved his hand gently, and a gentle force supported Yin Beichen's body, bringing him in front of him slowly. Like Emperor Bo-sun, Yin Beichen sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. The two of them sat opposite each other. Emperor Bo-sun's eyes shone with a strange light. Like 2 sharp swords, they instantly sank into Yin Beichen's tightly shut eyes. Yin Beichen shuddered as though he was stimulated by something. He suddenly straightened his body and opened his eyes. The obsession fiend qi in his body also surged violently. To be precise, the obsession fiend qi seemed to have sensed something. It was more like excitement. Emperor Bo-sun slowly extended his skinny finger and touched Yin Beichen's glabella gently. Both of their bodies shuddered at the same time. Immediately after, golden halos surged from Emperor Bo-sun's body and flowed through his finger into Yin Beichen's sea of consciousness. Yin Beichen's sea of consciousness was originally shattered. Now, under the shroud of the golden halos, his vitality gradually began to recover. Even the wounds on his primordial spirit began to heal. On Yin Beichen's body, there was a pitch-black obsession fiend qi, but at the same time, there was a sacred golden halo. The two completely different forces should have been opposing each other. However, on Yin Beichen's body, they reached a strange balance. Buddha and demon in one body. Yin Beichen was originally a lamp that had run out of oil. However, as time passed, his vitality gradually recovered. His vital signs also gradually stabilized. Seeing this, Wu Dao's main body finally relaxed and let out a long sigh of relief. At this moment his heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have sensed something and looked sideways. Not far away, Sky Wolf was still lying on the ground obediently. However, it was desperately winking at him, as though telling him to leave quickly. Wu Dao's main body frowned slightly. Emperor Bo-sun had saved Yin Beichen. It would be unreasonable for him to turn and leave without saying goodbye. Furthermore, Sky Wolf's worries seemed unnecessary. What kind of person was Emperor Bo-sun? If Emperor Bo-sun wanted to kill him, he would have done so long ago. Why would he talk so much to him? Chapter 2307. The Avicii Hell was ancient and mysterious. It was an existence that transcended epochs. Emperor Bo's son might be the only existence that had survived the Avicii Hell. If the 16 hell maps were drawn by Emperor Bo's son, then this expert might know a lot of secrets and information about the Avicii Hell. Wu Dao knew almost nothing about the Avicii Hell. Even if he wanted to leave, he could only return the way he came. This time, without the sensing from the devil mantra, the martial Dao body might never be able to walk out of this labyrinthine ant nest. Moreover, there was the threat of the terrifying hell ant swarm. If he could obtain some information about the Avicii Hell from Emperor Bo's son, he might be able to find a way out. At the thought of the hell ant swarm, Wu Dao could not help but think of something. The hell ant swarm that was chasing them stopped in front of this hall. Thinking about it now, it was probably because of Emperor Bo's son's existence. As for Emperor Bo's son's flesh being eaten by the hell ant swarm when he fell here, it might be because he was seriously injured. Moreover, the hell-suppressing cauldron was still in the Avicii Hell. Now, other than being thin and weak, Emperor Bo's son did not seem to be injured at all. It was very likely that he had recovered. The whole thing seemed to make sense. However, there was a huge puzzle in all of this. Why was Emperor Bo's son still alive? Was he not dead, or did he come back from the dead? If Imperial Monarch Bo's son was still alive, then how did he survive when he was attacked by the hellish ants, had his flesh eaten, and suffered such torment? The Avicii Hell was a world of its own that isolated the heaven-earth Yuan Qi. How did he recover from his injuries and live until now? If Emperor Bo's son came back from the dead, it was even more unimaginable. The martial Dao body had once suspected that the Bo's son in front of him was just a remnant will. However, when he saw Emperor Bo's son imparting power to Yan Beichen, he denied this speculation. A remnant will had almost no ability, let alone imparting power. Moreover, if it was just a remnant will, Celestial Wolf would recognize it immediately. Wu Dao's main body had even wondered if it was the artifact spirit of the Kata saber that was causing trouble. But when he held the Kata saber, it was entangled by the power of 6 desires, which meant that the weapon spirit of the Kata saber was still inside. That was why the Kata saber attacked like this. At that moment, Emperor Bo's son retracted his finger. A wisp of black gas surged out from his eyes before quickly vanishing. At this moment, Emperor Bo's son's face changed from solemn and dignified to ghastly and terrifying. His facial features hadn't changed, but his temperament had greatly changed. Skywolf had been sneaking glances in Bo's son's direction. When he saw the scene, he trembled in fright. He quickly retracted his gaze and secretly prayed. As Wu Dao's true body was deep in thought, he suddenly felt a chill. His heart trembled as he subconsciously looked at Emperor Bo's son. At this moment, Emperor Bo's son had already recovered. He looked at him with a smile and nodded slightly. This child's life is not in danger. When he wakes up, his injuries will be healed. Furthermore, he should be able to take another step and enter the heavenly essence realm. Wu Dao's true body bowed and cupped his fists again. Thank you, Senior. Although he said that, Wu Dao's true body was already secretly on guard. The eerie feeling he felt at that moment made his hair stand on end, and he shuddered in fear. In the Avicii Hell, spirit perception was useless. He had to be 120% alert, and not relax at all. Yan Beichen was still unconscious, but his life aura had stabilized. Senior, you've been in the Avicii Hell for a long time. Do you know how to get out? Wu Dao's true body asked. After confirming that Yan Beichen was fine, he had to leave as soon as possible. Wu Dao's true body also felt that the Avicii Hell was filled with sinister eeriness. If he continued to stay, he didn't know what would happen. Of course. Emperor Lord Bo's son stood up slowly. It's time to leave as well. Emperor Lord Bo's son gestured for the heavenly wolf to carry Yan Beichen on its back. Then, he picked up the Kata saber and wrapped it around Yan Beichen's waist. Old master, what are you? The heavenly wolf asked carefully. Since he has obtained my legacy, I'll give him the Kata saber. Emperor Lord Bo's son said casually. He didn't feel any heartache or hesitation when he gave this emperor weapon that had accompanied him for so many years to someone else. Senior, you can leave the Avicii hell at any time? Wu Dao's true body suddenly asked. Of course. Emperor Lord Bo Sun replied indifferently. Tens of thousands of years ago, the hell-suppressing cauldron disappeared from this place. Since then, these hells can no longer trap me. Then why have you stayed here for tens of thousands of years, Senior? Wu Dao's true body asked again. Emperor Lord Bo Sun's back was facing Wu Dao's true body, and he did not answer. However, the black chi in his eyes surged once more and paused for a moment before disappearing. Wu Dao's true body didn't see the change in Emperor Lord Bo Sun, but he could feel his heart palpitating. He didn't linger on this question and changed the topic. Senior, what are the hells that you mentioned just now? Does it have anything to do with the 16 diagrams you drew? You're very smart. Emperor Lord Bo Sun chuckled. The Avicii hell can be divided into the Avicii Great Hell and the 16 minor hells. The space we're in is one of the 16 minor hells. Over the years, I've traveled through the 16 hells to draw the 16 hell diagrams. Minor hells, great hells. Wu Dao's true body shuddered and asked subconsciously. In other words, our current location isn't the true core of the Avicii hell. That's right. Emperor Lord Bo Sun nodded. The Avicii Great Hell was forged from the flesh and blood of the Emperor of Infinity. The 16 minor hells around it are all in the Taiwei Mountain. Wu Dao's true body was secretly alarmed. The two hells they had passed through were sinister and terrifying enough. There were many ferocious life forms of hell, but they had yet to reach the core of the Avicii hell. Emperor Lord Bo Sun continued. If one falls into the Avicii Great Hell, even I won't be able to escape. That's the true Avicii hell, the most terrifying existence in the world. Even an expert like Emperor Lord Bo Sun couldn't escape. Back then, more than 20 Emperor Lords besieged Emperor Lord Bo Sun and sent him into the Avicii hell, thinking that they would be rid of all future troubles. They didn't expect the Avicii hell to be divided into minor hells. The 16 minor hells were built around the Avicii Great Hell, and Emperor Lord Bo Sun had fallen into one of the 16 minor hells and lived until now. Perhaps even the 20 Emperor Lords back then didn't know such a secret. Who would know such a secret without entering the Avicii hell? Back then, with the hell-suppressing cauldron suppressing the Avicii hell, who could leave alive even if they were trapped in the minor hells? Wu Dao's true body was also relieved. They had barged in recklessly, but fortunately, they hadn't entered the Avicii Great Hell. Otherwise, they would be doomed eternally. Chapter 2308. Emperor Lord Bo Sun extended his skinny palm and swiped it gently in front of him, opening up a dark and deep crack. Sinister winds blew inside, and no one knew where it led to. A spatial tunnel? Wu Dao's true body murmured. Emperor Lord Bo Sun said, such a spatial tunnel can only pass through the Avicii hell. It can't directly leave the range of this prison. If the hell-suppressing cauldron was still around, and the Avicii hell had no flaws, I wouldn't even have the chance to open a spatial tunnel. With that said, Emperor Lord Bo Sun entered the spatial tunnel and vanished. Skywolf looked at Wu Dao's true body. Although it did not dare to say anything, it gave him a look to be careful before following closely into the spatial tunnel. Even without Skywolf's reminder, Wu Dao's true body could sense that Emperor Lord Bo Sun was clearly different from before after imparting his teachings to Yan Beichen. But at that moment, Wu Dao's true body had no way out. After pondering for a moment, he entered the spatial tunnel as well. After a while, Emperor Lord Bo Sun, Wu Dao's true body, Skywolf and Yan Beichen left the spatial tunnel and arrived in another space. The moment he appeared, Wu Dao's true body felt a strong sense of trepidation as his heart pounded uncontrollably. It was as though there was a bottomless abyss beneath him, and he would fall into it with no hope of reprieve. Wu Dao's true body even found it difficult to breathe. This feeling was even worse than when he entered the Avicii hell. He looked down instinctively. Not far below him was a gigantic vortex that was pitch black like ink. It was like a door that could devour all living beings. The door had a mystical demonic power that seemed to be constantly summoning Wu Dao's true body, trying to pull him in. Wu Dao's true body only took a glance, and he felt as though his essence spirit was about to be devoured by the door. This is the door of Avici. Emperor Lord Bo Sun's voice sounded, and his tone turned sinister. Once you enter this door, you will enter the true Avici hell. Wu Dao tried his best to calm his mind, trying his best not to be affected by the door of Avici. The Avici Great Hell was formed from the body of Heavenly Emperor Avici. Wu Dao's true body chanted the Prajna Nirvana Sutra in his heart, and the door of Avicii's influence on him was greatly reduced. On the other hand, Bo Sun was obviously greatly affected by the summoning of the door of Avici. Black chi surged in his eyes. His shriveled face occasionally had the solemn appearance of a Buddha, and occasionally had the ferocious and savage appearance of a demon. The appearance of Buddha and devil alternated with each other, as if a conflict was occurring within his body. Old Master, how do we get out? Let's leave this place quickly. When Skywolf saw this scene, he was scared witless and could not help but urge. Half of Emperor Bo Sun's face seemed to be plated with a layer of Buddhist golden light, while the other half of his face surged with black chi in a menacing manner. Emperor Bo Sun waved his sleeves and opened up a passageway above his head. Suddenly, boundless heaven-earth yuan chi surged in. A sliver of warmth and a ray of sunlight scattered in. This passageway led to the outside of the Avici hell. Skywolf's eyes lit up. At this moment, the golden half of Emperor Bo Sun's face had completely turned black. His eyes were pitch black and his gaze was sinister. 7 emotions, did you just call me old master? Emperor Bo Sun's voice was filled with cold killing intent as it slowly sounded. How dare you betray me? Hurry and escape. Skywolf screamed and carried Yan Beichen towards the passageway above his head. Wu Dao's main body also realized what had happened. Emperor Bo Sun was both Buddha and devil. Just now in mini hell, the reason why Emperor Bo Sun saved Yan Beichen and looked like a benevolent and magnanimous senior was because he revealed his Buddhist nature. And when Emperor Bo Sun imparted the Buddhist sutra to Yan Beichen, the demonic nature in his body gradually appeared and gained the upper hand. But at this moment, the demonic nature in Emperor Bo Sun's body had not completely manifested. When they arrived above the Avici gate, Emperor Bo Sun was stimulated by the Avici gate, and the demonic nature in his body was completely stimulated and dominated. And the demonic nature would never tolerate Skywolf betraying him. Wu Dao's main body was Skywolf's new master. The demonic nature would not tolerate the existence of Wu Dao's main body. Almost at the same time as Skywolf screamed, Wu Dao's main body moved and sped along the passageway. Trying to escape, Emperor Bo Sun's body was surrounded by black gas. He suddenly stretched out his hand and enveloped Wu Dao's main body and Skywolf. The unforeseen event happened without warning. Moreover, this unforeseen event was enough to bury Wu Dao's main body, Skywolf, and Yan Beichen. They could not resist the power of an Emperor Realm expert at all. At this moment, the void beside them suddenly split open. A dazzling golden Buddhist light appeared and slashed at Emperor Bo Sun's hand. Puchi! Emperor Bo Sun's entire arm was directly chopped off. However, there was no blood at the wound. Black gas surged, and the severed arm was enveloped by demonic chi. In the blink of an eye, a new arm was born. Wu Dao's main body did not have time to think. Just now, what was that golden Buddhist light, and where did it come from? Taking advantage of this fleeting opportunity, Wu Dao's main body and Skywolf fled far away. The closer they got to the exit of the passageway, the richer and clearer the heaven-earth yuan chi became. Emperor Bo Sun snorted. You've been dead for so many years, yet you're still haunting me. With a thought, the passageway in midair rapidly closed. The light at the entrance of the passageway also rapidly dimmed. The closure of the passageway meant that Wu Dao's main body, Skywolf, and Yan Beichen would once again fall into the eerie and terrifying Avici hell. The golden Buddhist light appeared again and surrounded the entrance of the passageway, trying its best to hold on. Under Emperor Bo Sun's powerful will, the passageway was still closing, but at a much slower speed. Quick, quick! Skywolf hurriedly urged and fled with all its might. Emperor Bo Sun's expression was cold as he said coldly, Ananda, you can't stop me with just your remnant soul. No one can leave if I want them to stay. Emperor Bo Sun took a deep breath, and like a whale swallowing a cow, a steady stream of demonic chi poured into his mouth. Wu Dao's main body and Skywolf suddenly felt an extremely powerful suction force pulling them down rapidly. The exit of the passageway was right in front of them, but no matter how hard they struggled, they could not break out. Wu Dao's main body roared, and suddenly activated a secret technique. 9 purple halos burst out from behind him, condensing countless mysterious runes. Just Emperor Bo's Sun opened the passageway between Avicii Hell and the outside world. Heaven Earth Yuan Qi poured in, allowing Wu Dao's main body to recover its battle strength. At the same time, Wu Dao's main body pushed his bloodline to the limit and released the bloodline vision. Heaven and Earth Furnace. 9 Fate Wheels and Heaven and Earth Furnace were released at the same time. Wu Dao's main body knew his strength. In front of Emperor Bo's Sun, he could not withstand a single blow. He only hoped that by releasing these means, he could resist for a moment. Even if it was only for a moment. By using these means, Wu Dao's main body and Skywolf were closer to the exit of the passageway. They were only 1 step away. However, Wu Dao's main body and Skywolf could not take this step. Chapter 2309. Wu Dao opened his mouth again and chanted Buddhist scriptures. Prajna Nirvana Sutra. These golden Sanskrit characters condensed around him, making his body lighter. He temporarily broke free from Emperor Bo's Sun's control and took half a step closer to the entrance of the passage with Skywolf. Oh! Emperor Bo's Sun's expression changed. You actually know the cultivation technique of Emperor Wu Jian. Then all the more I can't let you go. Emperor Bo's Sun's eyes were deep as he attacked again. Across the void, streams of demonic qi burst out from his palm. Like pitch-black vines, they wrapped around Wu Dao's body. Being targeted by Emperor Bo's Sun, Wu Dao's body realized that he could no longer escape. The golden Buddhist light that had helped them block Emperor Bo's Sun's attack became dimmer and dimmer. It was obvious that it could not hold on. The entrance of the passage was about to close. Suddenly, Skywolf felt his body lighten. He did not know what had happened, but the suction force from below had disappeared. Skywolf carried Yan Beichen and instantly rushed out of the passage. He subconsciously turned back and saw more and more black vines on Wu Dao's body. The golden Sanskrit characters condensed by the Prajna Nirvana Sutra were completely drowned out. It's over. Skywolf's eyes widened as his heart sank. He realized that Wu Dao's body had no chance of escaping. Let's go. Wu Dao's body shouted. Protect Yan Beichen. As long as they escaped from the Avicii Hell, the monks of Shura Monastery, guarding the Grand Taiwei Mountain, would definitely see the commotion here. At that time, it was very likely that the heavenly kings of the Pure Land of Bliss would be alerted. There might even be an imperial emperor powerhouse. Emperor Bo's Sun had been trapped in the Avicii Hell for so many years. Even if he was still alive, it would be difficult for his combat strength to recover to its peak. As long as the Buddhist imperial emperor powerhouses were alerted, Emperor Bo's Sun would not be able to care about them. Skywolf and Yan Beichen might be able to survive. The moment the passage closed, Wu Dao's body used his spiritual will to erase the restriction on Skywolf's primordial spirit. Wu Dao's body did not have any feelings for Skywolf. However, he knew that under such circumstances, only Skywolf could protect Yan Beichen and return to the demon domain alive. At the same time, Skywolf felt the restriction on his primordial spirit suddenly disappeared. The exit of the tunnel had already shrunk to the size of a fist. Through this hole, one could see the figure of Wu Dao's true body. It had already been submerged by countless black vines, falling straight into the endless abyss. Wu Dao's body. For some reason, Skywolf's heart. Sun. This person, the master that he had never truly acknowledged, had actually given him eternal freedom before his death. Heavenly Wolf's eyes reddened as he grit his teeth and thought to himself, "Don't worry, as long as I'm alive, I'll definitely protect Yan Beichen well." Skywolf did not stop. He carried Yan Beichen and rushed out of the passage. They escaped from Avicii and rushed towards the Grand Taiwei Mountain. On the other side, the monks of Shura Temple sensed something on the Grand Taiwei Mountain. They soared into the air and looked in the direction of the Grand Taiwei Mountain. The monks of Shura Temple saw a spatial passage appear outside Avicii. What's going on? Someone broke through Avicii? Impossible. How can there be living beings in Avicii? Don't forget. Some time ago, a purple-robed man with a silver mask and a moon-devouring heavenly wolf entered Avicii. Are you saying that they're still alive? The monks of Shura Temple were in a hubbub of discussion. They could all sense that something unexpected might have happened in the Avicii hell of Taiwei Mountain. Should we go over and take a look? A monk suggested. While the monks of Ashura Temple were still hesitating, a silhouette flew out from the tunnel above Taiwei Mountain. His entire body was shimmering in silver light. The monks of Ashura Temple were shocked, and their expressions changed. There really was a living being that had escaped from Avicii. This had never happened in history. It had broken some kind of taboo. It's the moon-devouring heavenly wolf. A monk from the Ashura Temple recognized Heavenly Wolf's identity and exclaimed, "How is that possible? The Sky Wolf has just reached the Sky Origin stage. How did it escape from the Avicii hell?" Lin Fan thought, "What's with that spatial passage? That moon-devouring heavenly wolf can't open a spatial passage with its strength." While the monks of Shura Temple were arguing, the Sky Wolf was rushing towards them. It was extremely fast and carried a figure on its back. "Senior brother, should we stop it?" a monk asked in a low voice. "Who's going to stop it?" The monk of Shura Temple next to him said with lingering fear. "That Sky Wolf's cultivation is not high, but don't forget that it's the only living being that has escaped from Avicii alive." The monks of Shura Temple could not help but shudder at the thought. No one knew where this heavenly wolf had come from, or what methods it had to survive the ceaseless pain. "Let it pass," an elder of Shura Temple said in a low voice. "Judging from its direction, it should be returning to the demon realm. As long as it doesn't enter the Pure Land, there's no need for us to stop it." After a short pause, the elder of Shura Temple said, "Quick, go and inform Putua Temple. Tell them everything that happened in Avicii." As soon as he finished speaking, a monk immediately took out a few message talismans from his storage bag. He released his primordial chi and tore the message talismans into pieces. Several rays of divine light entered the void and disappeared instantly. Seeing this, the monks of Shura Temple let out a long sigh of relief. They could not deal with the abnormalities in Avicii. Only when the eminent monks of the Pure Land arrived could they find out what happened in Taiwei Mountain. Sky Wolf carried Yan Beichen and soon arrived at Shura Temple. Originally, he thought that there would be a fierce battle, but he did not expect that when he crossed the sky above Shura Temple, not a single monk came forward to stop him. The monks of Shura Temple watched him leave just like that. There was a trace of fear in their eyes when they looked at him. Sky Wolf did not have time to think and ran straight to the teleportation array. He had to leave this place as soon as possible. It would not be long before the eminent monks of Buddhism arrived, and Emperor Bosun could break free from Avicii at any time. At that time, a war between Buddhists would most likely break out on Taiwei Mountain. Not long after, Sky Wolf arrived at the teleportation array. Looking back in the direction of Shura Temple, he suddenly remembered the scene when he arrived at Shura Temple. At that time, the abbot of Shura Temple's Taoist heart was shaken, as if he had gone mad. He said, "Nonsense, he's back, Bosun is back." Unexpectedly, the abbot of Shura Temple's words came true. Chapter 23:10. Avicii Hell. Wu Dao's true body was covered in pitch-black vines as he fell into the abyss. In the blink of an eye, he was pulled before Emperor Lord Bosun. The golden Sanskrit that was condensed around Wu Dao's true body was completely devoured by the black vines. However, he did not give up. He propped up his 9 fate wheels and channeled his heaven and earth furnace to defend against Emperor Lord Bosun's attacks with all his might. "What sort of nonsense are you cultivating?" Emperor Lord Bosun's fiend form was sinister, and his gaze was dark as he sneered. "How weak! You can't even withstand a single blow." The moment he said that, the pitch-black vines that coiled around Wu Dao's true body suddenly tightened and exerted strength. Crack! 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 The purple light of the 9 fate wheels flickered and let out creaking sounds, as though they could collapse at any moment. Shatter! Emperor Lord Bosun hollered softly. Boom! The 9 fate wheels that were condensed with Wu Dao's will and techniques collapsed instantly, turning into countless fragments that fell into Wu Dao's furnace. Ever since the 9 fate wheels were condensed, they had always been indestructible, and could even take on countless divine weapons head-on. But now they could not defend against the suppression of absolute strength at all. Many pitch-black vines landed on the burning Wu Dao's furnace. Flames raged and the pitch-black vines sizzled as thick smoke billowed. Interesting. When Emperor Lord Bo Sun saw that the bloodline phenomenon of Wu Dao's true body could refine his fiend qi, he could not help but grin and reveal a row of white teeth. However, in the blink of an eye, Emperor Lord Bo Sun retracted his smile and changed the topic. However, you're still too weak. The fiend qi on Wu Dao's true body turned richer, and his strength increased exponentially. Crack, crack, crack. Cracks appeared on Wu Dao's furnace one after another. It did not last long before it exploded. Exclamation point. Wu Dao's true body spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale. Ever since his true body was born, he had never tasted defeat. With an invincible stance, he swept through all strong enemies in the world and suppressed everything. When had he ever suffered such a serious injury? The difference in strength between the two was simply too great. Even though Wu Dao's original body was an anomaly, the Wu Dao that he created couldn't make up for the gap between them. Without the 9 fate wheels and the smelter of heaven and earth, the demonic qi gushed into Wu Dao's body instantly. Like a storm, the demonic qi swept through his 8 extraordinary meridians, limbs, bones, and internal organs. Not long after, Wu Dao's bloodline, bones, and organs were all dyed black. Even the sea of consciousness of Wu Dao's true body had turned into a dark abyss. Only a purple primordial spirit was emitting a weak glow. Its body was still burning with purple flames. Why do you know the Prajna Nirvana Sutra? Emperor Bo Sun asked. Wu Dao's main body didn't say a word, his expression cold. Tell me the Prajna Nirvana Sutra and submit to me. I can spare your life and even bestow upon you a fortuitous encounter. Emperor Bo Sun said again. Wu Dao's main body remained silent. Wu Dao was fearless. How could he submit to others? If at this moment, Wu Dao's main body submitted to Emperor Bo Sun in order to survive, his Dao would completely collapse. He would no longer have a chance to continue. If Wu Dao was cut off, what was the point of his main body existing? I won't give you a third chance. Emperor Bo Sun's lips curled into a sinister smile. What kind of status did he have? As an emperor expert, he had already given Wu Dao's main body 2 chances. This was already a great favor. Emperor Bo Sun's eyes shimmered with a strange light. 2 black beams of light entered the eyes of Wu Dao's main body. Soul-searching art. Emperor Bo Sun didn't bother with Wu Dao's main body. Instead, he directly used the soul-searching art. A black beam of light appeared in Wu Dao's main body's sea of consciousness and wrapped around the primordial spirit of Wu Dao's main body. However, just as the black beam wrapped around it, it was burned by the flames on Wu Dao's primordial spirit. It turned into wisps of green smoke and disappeared. When Wu Dao's main body first condensed his martial soul, it was a ball of flame. This primordial spirit was actually condensed from the martial soul fire. If one wanted to search the soul of Wu Dao's main body, the martial soul fire would have to be extinguished. However, if the martial soul fire was extinguished, it would mean the death of Wu Dao's main body. Emperor Bo Sun wouldn't be able to obtain any memories. Oh! Emperor Bo Sun frowned slightly. With his strength, it was naturally easy for him to extinguish the martial soul fire. However, he wouldn't be able to obtain anything if he did that. After pondering for a while, Emperor Bo Sun's heart stirred. He laughed sinisterly. It doesn't matter if I can't search your soul. I have a way to make you completely sink into the demonic Dao and submit to me. Emperor Bo Sun's figure seemed to vanish as he transformed into a wisp of black smoke that circled around Wu Dao's main body. Suddenly, a series of decadent sounds sounded in the ears of Wu Dao's main body. Many demonesses appeared before his eyes, twisting their bodies in a bewitching manner. Emperor Bo Sun wanted to use his heart of the demonic Dao to completely assimilate Wu Dao's main body. Emperor Bo Sun released his fiend technique with all his might, which had a much greater impact than the Kata saber. However, Wu Dao's main body closed his eyes and guarded his Dao heart. No matter what scenes or sounds appeared in his mind, he was unmoved. There was no self, no human, no living beings and no longevity. Pink skeletons, white skin, bones and flesh. Everything was empty. If one could see all forms, they would see Gautama. No matter how Emperor Bo-sun cast his techniques, it was difficult for him to affect Wu Dao's will. This scene was similar to when the ancient fiend Bo-sun descended to interfere, tempt and obstruct the Buddha's cultivation, when the Buddha comprehended the Tao under the Bodhi tree. The current Emperor Bo-sun was not inferior to the ancient fiend Bo-sun of the past. However, the cultivation realm of Wu Dao's main body was far inferior to the Buddha of the past. However, be it the Tao hearts of Wu Dao's main body or the Buddha, they were as firm as rocks and unshakable. After the trial of the Tao heart staircase, it was almost impossible for Emperor Bo-sun to demonize the Tao heart of Wu Dao's main body. Give up. A moment later, Wu Dao's main body suddenly spoke. Emperor Bo-sun's figure appeared once more, and a hint of anger flashed through the depths of his eyes. He had been busy for half a day, and even felt mentally exhausted. However, this person could still speak as though he was not affected at all. He had just been born, and had yet to return to the heavenly realm to unleash his divine powers. Yet, he was repeatedly thwarted by this weak cultivator. Emperor Bo-sun was infuriated. You let Heavenly Wolf go on purpose. Wu Dao's main body suddenly said. At that time, Wu Dao's main body and Heavenly Wolf were at the edge of the passageway's exit. Given Emperor Bo-sun's strength, there was no way Heavenly Wolf could escape if he wanted to keep it. The only possibility was that Emperor Bo-sun let Heavenly Wolf go on purpose. You could tell. Emperor Bo-sun grinned. You're so smart that I can't bear to kill you. Although Emperor Bo-sun was smiling, the coldness in his eyes turned colder. However, you can't be demonized and you're unwilling to submit to me. That makes me very unhappy. Emperor Bo-sun said faintly. I know of a punishment that's 1,000 times, no, 10,000 times more terrifying than killing you. It will make you sink into eternal torment and pain. Wu Dao's main body's heart sank. Right then, Emperor Bo-sun's voice sounded. The Avicii hell is below. I'll send you on your way. Book guest residence reading website. Chapter 23:11. Wu Dao's true body suddenly felt a huge force pushing him down. His 9 fate wheels were shattered, and the furnace of heaven and earth had collapsed. His body had been infiltrated by the black demonic qi. His bones, organs, and blood vessels were all black. He could not withstand it at all. Moreover, the door of Avicii was still emitting a powerful devouring power. The black vortex spun continuously, and the black qi fluctuated violently. There seemed to be ghosts wailing behind the door. Countless ferocious and terrifying faces appeared, as if they were going to tear Su Zimo apart. Countless pale arms seemed to reach out from the black door, grabbing Wu Dao's true body and pulling him into the Avicii hell. The Mask of Mara. Emperor Bo-sun suddenly thought of something. He wanted to go down and take the Mask of Mara back from Wu Dao's true body. But just as he moved, he suddenly stopped. He looked at the pitch-black vortex below, and deep fear flashed in the depths of his eyes. If he came to the door of Avicii, even he was not confident that he could break free. That slight hesitation caused Wu Dao's true body to be swallowed by the door of Avicii and disappear completely. Emperor Bo-sun quickly calmed himself down. Losing the Mask of Mara was not a big deal to him. He did not plan to keep the Mask of Mara and the Kata saber with him this time. That was why he gave the Kata saber to Yin Beichen. Emperor Bo-sun looked up slightly, as if he could see the scene outside through the layers of space. He murmured, Pure land of bliss, I'm coming. Shura Temple's teleportation array flashed with light. Not long after, more than 10 figures appeared. They were all monks. The 3 in the lead had powerful auras. They were Buddhist arhats, which meant they were true self-experts. The monks following behind them were all high-level heavenly immortals as well. Greetings, senior brothers of Putua Temple. The monks of Shura Temple hurried forward and bowed. These monks were from the Putua Temple in the southern viewing state of the Pure Land of Bliss. With Mount Meru as the center, the Pure Lands had 9 mountains and 8 seas. Around Mount Meru, There were 4 great continents. They were the Southern Viewing Continent in the south, the Dongsheng Divine Continent in the east, the Aparagodania Continent in the west, and the North Continent in the north. The Taiwei Mountain was located in the south of the Pure Land. Therefore, the Nanzhan Section Continent was the closest to the Taiwei Mountain. In the Southern Viewing Section Continent, there were 5 great Buddhist temples, and they were all heaven-level sects. Putua Temple was one of them. The establishment of Shura Temple here, to watch over Taiwei Mountain, was also the result of the joint decision of the 5 great Buddhist temples. What happened? Xianbo, one of the 3 arhats of Putua Temple, asked in a deep voice. A Shura Temple elder stepped forward and narrated the story of Wu Dao's original body, Sky Wolf's entry into the Avicii Hell, and Sky Wolf's escape. He entered the Avicii Hell and came out alive. A look of disbelief appeared on Arhat Xianbo's face as he frowned. How is this possible? The other monks of Putua Temple also shook their heads. Since the endless era, who knew how many years had passed since then? There were always some cultivators and living beings who were willing to take the risk to explore the secrets of the Avicii Hell. But from ancient times until now, no living being had ever come out alive from the Avicii Hell. Not to mention that the moon-swallowing Sky Wolf that came out was only a level 1 heaven immortal. It's absolutely true. The Shura Temple elder hurriedly said. All the monks of our temple saw it with their own eyes. It can't be wrong. Even if you saw it with your own eyes, it might not be true. Another Putua Temple arhat shook his head and said, there are many illusionary techniques in Tao that can deceive the heavens and the sea and deceive people. If you want to let you see some illusions, as long as a true one expert makes a move, it can be done. The monks of Shura Temple were a little confused. What the Putua Temple arhat said was not without reason. It was too unbelievable that a living being could leave the Avicii Hell alive. Even they did not dare to believe it in the depths of their hearts. Another Shura Temple elder said, but someone just fell into the Avicii Hell, and then this happened. Isn't it too much of a coincidence? Arhat Xianbo pondered for a while and said, since we're here, let's go take a look. With that, Arhat Xianbo stood up and walked towards the Taiwei Mountain first. The dozen monks of Putua Temple and the monks of Shura Temple also followed. Before the monks reached the Taiwei Mountain, they had just crossed half the strait between the 2 mountains when a violent fluctuation came from the sky above the Taiwei Mountain. The monks' expressions froze, and they hurriedly stopped. The Taiwei Mountain in front of them was the Avicii Hell. Any abnormal movement would make them tremble in fear. Boom! Suddenly, a violent sound came from the Taiwei Mountain. The entire Taiwei Mountain was shaking slightly. Ha 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 ha! A burst of wild laughter came from the Taiwei Mountain. It was filled with excitement. The laughter reverberated through the Taiwei Mountain endlessly, and was filled with a strange demonic power. Immediately after, a pitch-black fiend chi burst forth from the Taiwei Mountain and surged into the clouds, covering the entire sky above the monks. Initially, the sky was a clear blue. In the blink of an eye, dark clouds covered the sky and fiend chi covered the sky. Psst! The monks were shocked and gasped. The laughter came from the depths of the Taiwei Mountain, from the Avicii Hell. In other words, someone had truly survived the Avicii Hell. Hurry! Hurry and inform the Heavenly King experts of the Pure Land that a fiend has appeared in the Avicii Hell. Arhat Xianbo was the first to react. He slapped his storage bag and crushed a jade talisman. The other 2 arhats also quickly crushed a jade talisman in their storage bag. Ha 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 ha. Right then, an even wilder laughter sounded. It was incomparably ear-piercing, and was like tiny worms that burrowed into the 7 orifices of the monks. Ah! In midair, the monks had pained expressions as they hugged their heads, trying to isolate themselves from the laughter. However, these actions were all in vain. Even the 3 arhats of Putua Monastery were unable to withstand a single blow from that laughter. The monks did not realize that their 7 orifices were already bleeding nonstop. The monks of Shura Monastery also walked out of the monastery. In an instant, the sky changed drastically as sand and stones flew everywhere. Black tornadoes swept through the entire temple. Countless ancient buildings were destroyed by the black tornadoes and collapsed, turning into ruins. The terrifying laughter sounded, and many of the monks of Shura Monastery could not withstand it at all. They fell to the ground one after another and died. It was just a laugh, but who knew how many monks had lost their lives? Arhat Xianbo and the other monks could no longer hold on in midair. They tried their best to open their eyes wide. Their eyes were bloodshot, and their vision was blurry with blood. Through the blood, they could see an incomparably tall demonic figure rising slowly from the Taiwei mountain in front of them. It stood at the peak of the Taiwei mountain, as though it was indomitable. Its black hair danced wildly, and its demonic eyes were pitch black as it overlooked all living beings. Chapter 23:12. The demonic shadow suddenly opened its mouth and sucked in large mouthfuls of air. Arhat Xianbo and the other monks suddenly felt the life force in their bodies slipping away rapidly. In just a few breaths, all the monks in the air were sucked dry of their blood essence. They turned into withered skeletons and fell from the sky into the ocean between the two mountains. On the peak of Taiwei Mountain, Bo Sun's face was flushed with blood. His aura became even gloomier. "How dare you, demon? How dare you be so arrogant in my pure land?" A majestic voice sounded like the roar of a lion. It came from behind the dark clouds that covered the sky. Immediately after, a blazing beam of light tore through the dark clouds, scattering down a sacred golden light. A monk descended along with the beam of light, his entire body bathed in golden light. He held a Vajra scepter in his hand and glared at Emperor Bo Sun angrily. The heavenly king of Putua Temple had arrived. A heavenly king was a grotto heaven realm expert, equivalent to an immortal king in the nine heavens immortal realm. Dong! A crisp sound suddenly came from heaven and earth. It was neither light nor heavy, but it seemed to be able to pierce people's hearts. The heavenly king of Great Zen Temple, one of the 5 great Buddhist temples of the southern viewing continent, appeared with a wooden fish in his hand. The sound just now was the sound of knocking on the wooden fish. It was deafening. Amitba. Another Sanskrit voice came and resounded through heaven and earth. The dark sky was torn apart by this Sanskrit voice, revealing a huge crack. Rays of light sprinkled down on the mortal realm. Another heavenly king appeared. His hands were empty, but his eyes were like torches. He wore a golden kasaya and had a powerful aura. This heavenly king came from Mok Temple, one of the 5 great Buddhist temples. After the Mok Temple's heavenly king appeared, 2 more heavenly kings appeared. One of them was stout. His ears were so big that his earlobes almost fell to his shoulders. He had a big belly and held a string of prayer beads in his hand. This heavenly king came from Amitba Temple. The other heavenly immortal held a Buddhist staff. He looked to be the youngest, only middle-aged. He came from Mini Knowledge Temple. The heavenly kings of the 5 great Buddhist temples of the southern viewing continent appeared at the same time. They were ready to join forces to suppress the demon that escaped from Avicii hell. Cracks appeared in the dark sky. Demonic chi surged, but it seemed that it could no longer stop the golden light. The Pure Land was about to regain its light. Demons, surrender now. The Great Zen Temple's heavenly king knocked on the wooden fish. Together with the sound domain secret technique he cultivated, he let out a loud bellow, exuding divine might. Hee! Emperor Bo Sun scanned the 5 heavenly kings and murmured, "How dare a bunch of juniors flaunt their prowess in front of me?" It had been more than 1,000,000 years since the Battle of Taiwei Mountain. The lifespan of a grotto heaven realm expert was about 1,000,000 years. In other words, these Buddhist heavenly kings had never seen Emperor Bo Sun before. Furthermore, Bo Sun always wore the Mo Luo mask back then, so not many people had seen his true appearance. Bo Sun didn't answer. All he did was open his mouth and constantly breathe in heaven-earth yuan qi. He had just walked out of the Avicii hell, and his combat strength had yet to recover to its peak. I can't let him continue to cultivate and absorb yuan qi. The heavenly king of Putua Temple reacted immediately and shouted, "Attack!" Boom! 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 Almost at the same time, a loud bang sounded behind the 5 heavenly kings. The void collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye, revealing different scenes. A gigantic cave seemed to have appeared in the collapsed void behind the heavenly king of Putua Temple. Golden light shone from within, and a male lion covered in golden fur was roaring into the heavens. It was like a bloodline phenomenon. However, the gigantic cave behind the heavenly king of Putua temple emitted energy fluctuations that far exceeded the power of a phenomenon. Endless Tao and Dharma undulated in the cave. Those Tao arts transformed into thousands of rays of light, thousands of auspicious colors and countless runes that breathed in massive amounts of heaven-earth, yuan qi through the cave. Another scene appeared behind the heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery. Through the cave formed by the collapse of the void, one could vaguely see a vast ocean within. Countless white fishes swam happily in it. The white fishes leaped out of the surface of the sea and landed in the seawater with a crisp thud. It was identical to the sound of the wooden fish in the hands of the heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery. The cave also breathed in massive amounts of heaven-earth yuan qi, condensing different Tao arts. Different phenomenons appeared behind the other three heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries as well. That was the power of a grotto heaven. A grotto heaven was a chamber created within one's body that connected to the heavens and the three realms. It could absorb heaven-earth yuan qi wildly from the heavens to nourish one's body. The formation of a grotto heaven originated from a Tao fruit. Therefore, every cultivator cultivated different Tao arts, and the grotto heaven formed would be different as well. After forming a grotto heaven, cultivators could give up on absorbing cultivation resources, such as essence spirit stones and essence spirit liquid. Instead, they could use the grotto heaven to plunder heaven-earth yuan qi at an even more terrifying speed. A grotto heaven nurtured the Tao arts of a cultivator. When a grotto heaven realm expert summoned his grotto heaven in battle, his combat strength would increase exponentially. Emperor Lord Bosun had just come out of the Avicii hell and was still tainted with the rich Avicii fiend qi. As such, the five heavenly kings could not detect his cultivation realm. The five heavenly kings did not dare to be careless and summoned their grotto heavens, prepared to attack together. Fufufu. Emperor Lord Bosun laughed. Initially, his laughter was deep. Towards the end, it became ear-piercing and resounding. Ha 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 ha. Amidst Emperor Lord Bosun's laughter, he stood on the Taiwei mountain with his arms spread and endless sinister fiend qi emanated from his body. Instantly the skies darkened. The entire sky seemed to be covered by a gigantic black cloth, and could not see the sun. Even the faint light emitted by the five heavenly kings' grotto heavens appeared insignificant against the shroud of darkness. Welcome to my world, the Parinirvana heaven. Emperor Lord Bosun grinned and spread his arms. His face was menacing and sinister as he stood on the peak of the mountain, resembling the only god that ruled over this world. What did you say? The heavenly kings of Great Zen Monastery shuddered with fear. Parinirvana heaven. Putua Monastery's heavenly king's voice trembled, and his face was pale. The other four heavenly kings were pale as well. That's right. Emperor Lord Bosun's voice sounded once more. The Parinirvana heaven is also what you guys call the Great Fiend heaven. Psst. The five heavenly kings were shocked, and their hearts seemed to have stopped beating at that moment. The Great Fiend heaven was a world created by Emperor Lord Bosun 1,000,000 years ago. The five of them were trapped in the Great Fiend heaven. Emperor Lord Bosun was still alive. The five heavenly kings felt a bone-chilling chill surge into their hearts. They felt their limbs turn cold, and the grotto heavens behind them trembled continuously, as though they could collapse at any moment. Emperor Lord Bosun, the Great Fiend heaven. In the Pure Land of Buddhism, this was simply a taboo word. Chapter 23:13. Even if someone mentioned it, they would change their expression. They were afraid that their heart of Buddhism would be disturbed by the demonic thoughts. And now, the five heavenly kings were facing this terrifying devil that was like a Buddhist taboo. The battle back then was too tragic. Both the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm and the Pure Lands suffered heavy losses. More than half of the 20-odd imperial emperors died on the spot. Moreover, the imperial emperors knew that even if they joined forces, it would be difficult to kill Bosun, who was both a Buddha and a demon. That was why the imperial emperors came up with such a plan to set up the battlefield here and banish Bosun to the Avicii hell. never to be reincarnated. But who would have thought that Bo Sun was still alive, and had walked out of the Avicii hell after paying such a heavy price? The world had changed. With Bo Sun's return, the entire heaven realm would probably change. Could the legend be true? The Putua Temple's heavenly king thought. Back then, the ancient demon Bo Sun fought with the Buddha. Although he was defeated and died, there was a rumor in the Buddhist sect that the ancient demon would appear in troubled times. The Buddhist monks all believed that Emperor Bo Sun was actually the incarnation of the ancient devil in this world. Later, when Bo Sun was banished to the Avicii hell, the monks all thought that the ancient demon had died. But who would have thought that Bo Sun would return in this life? The Putua Temple, Great Zen Temple, Mok Temple, Amitabha Temple, Polylor Temple, 5 great Buddhist temples, and the 5 heavenly kings were all top experts in the heaven realm. But the current situation was out of their control. Bo Sun, the Great Zen Temple's heavenly king, tried his best to calm himself down and said loudly, "Even if you come back, the Buddhist sect's imperial emperors can still suppress you. If you use the Great Devil Sky, the Buddhist sect's imperial emperors will arrive soon." The Putua Temple's heavenly king clenched his fists and said, "You just left the Avicii hell and haven't recovered to your peak. You can't fight the Buddhist sect's imperial emperors." "You're right." Bo Sun grinned and sighed. "But it's enough to kill you." Bo Sun's eyes lit up as he activated the Great Devil Sky. Demonic chi surged between heaven and earth, and a vast power that was unstoppable. In this world, Bo Sun was the only god, and no one could go against him. Rumble! With a heaven-shaking explosion, the heavenly grotto heavens behind the 5 heavenly kings were unable to withstand the power of the Great Devil Sky. 5 heavenly kings spat blood sky. In the Great Devil Sky, even if the 5 of them wanted to escape, they had no chance at all. Their lives were in the hands of Emperor Bo Sun. Whoosh! Imperial Lord Bo Sun took a deep breath. Fiendish aura swirled around Putua Monastery's heavenly king's body like vines that pierced into his body. Bo, the heavenly king, heavenly heaven the heavens, heavenly of the heavenly king of the heavenly emperor, king, he, the king of the heavenly king. He was dead. A grotto heaven realm expert, who was almost at the peak of the upper world, died, before the 4 of them, just like that. A heavenly king had a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. However, life and death could be decided with a single thought. Bo Sun smacked his lips and revealed a look of enjoyment. He swept his gaze across the remaining 4 heavenly kings and murmured softly, "Who's next?" The 4 heavenly kings shuddered. A fear of death grew in them, growing stronger until it was difficult to suppress. Normally speaking, at the level of a heavenly king, one's Tao heart would be firm and unshakable. However, under the shroud of the Great Devil Sky, the wills and Tao hearts of the 4 heavenly kings began to waver. Bo Sun's gaze paused on the heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery for a moment as he asked. The heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery shuddered and nearly had a mental breakdown. "Or you?" Bo Sun shifted his gaze to the heavenly king of Amitabha Monastery. In his agitation, the heavenly king of Amitabha Monastery exerted strength in his fingers and crushed one of the prayer beads in his hands. Emperor Bo Sun grinned and took another deep breath. Fiend chi spread and coiled around the heavenly king of Multiple Rumors Monastery. In more than 10 breaths, the heavenly king of Multiple Rumors Monastery lost all his vitality and turned into a skeleton. His eyes were empty, and he died with grievances. Even as a heavenly king of the Buddhist monasteries, in the eyes of Bo Sun, his life was like grass that could be slaughtered at will. Bo Sun let out a long sigh, licked his lips and said, Not bad. Absorbing your life essence is much faster than cultivating normally. Please spare my life, Imperial Lord." The heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery lost his mind, and his Tao heart collapsed. Unable to hold on any longer, he knelt on the ground with a thud and begged for mercy. "It wasn't easy for me to cultivate, and I don't want to die just like that. As long as you're willing to let me off, I'm willing to follow you and submit to you." "Oh!" Emperor Bo Sun raised his eyebrows and nodded with a satisfied expression. "You're quite sensible and tactful." Delighted, the heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery kowtowed hurriedly. "Thank you for sparing my life, Imperial Lord. Thank you. Fool. The heavenly king of Moke Monastery hollered. The reason why he used such methods is to instill fear in us and make us submit. How can you submit to him? Our Daos are different. The heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery grit his teeth. The Tao I seek is for longevity. So what if I cultivate the fiend Tao after today? The Imperial Lord and the fiend Buddha coexist together. Which one of you is a match for him? You. Before the heavenly king of Moke Monastery could finish, he was shrouded by pitch-black fiend chi. Before long, his life essence was sucked away and he died. Apart from the heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery, the heavenly king of Umitba Monastery was the only one left of the 5 heavenly kings. Ice. The heavenly king of Umitba Monastery sighed gently and assumed a lotus position, pressing his palms together. Bo-sun, it's your turn. Sneering coldly, Bo-sun opened his mouth without hesitation and sucked. In the blink of an eye, the heavenly king of Umitba Monastery was reduced to a skeleton and died. Imperial Lord, let's leave the Buddhist holy lands and head to the fiend domain as soon as possible. The heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery said hurriedly. With such a huge commotion here and the deaths of 4 heavenly kings, there's a high chance that an imperial lord of the Buddhist monasteries will appear. Bo-sun looked at the heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery with a strange expression, and said with a fake smile, I didn't say that I was going to let you live. You. The heavenly king of Great Zen Monastery widened his eyes. Right then, an extremely terrifying spirit consciousness descended from the skies above the Taiwei mountain. Instantly, a Buddhist light shone and pierced through the pitch-black great fiend sky like sharp swords. Oh, it's finally here. Bo-sun raised his head slightly and murmured softly with a strange look in his eyes. Book guest residence reading website. Chapter 23:14. This is. Above the firmaments, a figure descended and looked down at the spreading darkness with a solemn expression. His heart skipped a beat as he exclaimed, Great Devil Sky! Emperor Lord Bo-sun! The Buddhist emperor immediately recognized the sinister world that blotted out the sky. A look of disbelief flashed across his eyes. How was that possible? Emperor Lord Bo-sun had been banished to the Avicii hell for many years. How could the Great Devil Sky reappear in the world? At that moment, the Great Devil Sky suddenly rose against the tide. Endless darkness swept towards the figure above the firmaments, wanting to devour him as well. Oh, the Buddhist emperor did not dare to be careless. He pressed his palms together and chanted a Dharma name. Behind him, a blinding golden light suddenly bloomed as a paradise that resembled a pure land appeared. One side was blinding while the other side was dark and sinister. 2 completely different worlds, 2 opposing forces, directly collided with each other, causing an earth-shattering explosion. The earth quaked as the world turned dark. Seawater soared into the sky, forming a massive wave that was hundreds of thousands of feet tall, that struck the 2 Taiwei mountains. The void between heaven and earth was filled with cracks as sinister winds blew within. One could even see the stars outside through the cracks. The collision of the 2 great imperial emperors shattered this side of the world. Emperor Lord Bo-sun was extremely infamous, and was practically a taboo in the Buddhist sect's paradise. Even the Buddhist emperor did not dare to attack rashly. He remained unmoving, and took a defensive stance to stall for time. As time passed, the commotion here would definitely alarm the other sovereign emperors of the Buddhist sections. Boom! Another loud sound rang out. The dark world below struck once more, but still failed to shake the Buddhist emperor's world. After a while, the darkness between heaven and earth gradually receded. The Buddhist emperor waited for a long time, but did not see Emperor Lord Bo-sun's counterattack. The Great Devil Sky had also dissipated, and the world regained its light. The Buddhist emperor's eyes were deep as he surveyed the surroundings. However, he did not find any traces of Emperor Lord Bo-sun. He only sensed a remnant aura of a spatial tunnel below. Emperor Lord Bo-sun had already left. This doesn't seem to match Emperor Lord Bo-sun's style of doing things. The Buddhist emperor frowned and remained silent. Suddenly, his heart stirred as though he sensed something. His gaze landed on a figure on the Taiwei mountain not far away. The great Zen temple's 6 Brahma kings. The Buddhist imperial emperor's figure flickered, and he instantly arrived at the 6 Brahma heavenly king's divine weapon. After probing it with his divine sense, he heaved a sigh of relief. The 6 Brahma heavenly kings were thin and withered. A great deal of their life essence had been plundered, and they looked dispirited. But at least they had managed to preserve their lives. On top of the Taiwei mountain, there were 4 other withered corpses. Although their flesh, blood, and life essence had been sucked dry, this Buddhist imperial emperor could still tell that these 4 were heavenly kings from Putua Temple, Amitabha Temple, Mok Temple, and Dwelling Temple. They were all dead. Compared to the other 4, the 6 Brahma heavenly kings could be considered lucky. Thank you for saving me, Monarch Treasure Light. 6 Brahma heavenly kings gasped for breath as he said with lingering fear. If the imperial emperor had come a step later, I wouldn't have been able to escape death either. Is it Monarch Bo-sun? Emperor Treasure Light asked in a deep voice. It's him. 6 Brahma heavenly kings clenched his fists and said. Not only did he not die, he even escaped from Avicii hell and started a massacre. When Emperor Treasure Light arrived, he had already sensed that many people had just died here. The Shura Temple on the Grand Taiwei Mountain had also been reduced to ruins. Almost all the monks inside had been wiped out. 6 Brahma Heavenly Lord continued. However, he has just escaped from Avicii hell, and his combat strength hasn't recovered to its peak. As soon as he came out, he was frantically plundering heaven earth yuan qi to nourish his body. No wonder. Emperor Treasure Light muttered softly. He was still puzzled as to why Monarch Bo-sun had left quietly after exchanging blows with him. It seemed like this was the reason. Monarch Bo-sun had been suppressed by Avicii hell for 1,000,000 years. Even if he had escaped now, his body must have suffered significant problems after such a long time. His combat strength had decreased sharply, which was why he chose to avoid the battle. Did you notice where he went? Emperor Treasure Light asked again. The infernal domain. 6 Brahma heavenly kings said. Emperor Treasure Light narrowed his eyes slightly and said, It seems like the infernal domain is going to stir up a storm of blood again. After pausing for a moment, Emperor Treasure Light said, Return to Great Zen Temple to recuperate. The matter of Monarch Bo-sun escaping from Avicii hell involves a lot of people. Don't spread it for now. Okay. 6 Brahma lords agreed. Emperor Treasure Light tore through the air and disappeared. 6 Brahma lords slowly got up and glanced in the direction of Shura Temple. Then he looked at Avicii hell under his feet and suddenly smiled. Then, he tore through the void and disappeared from the peak of Taiwei Mountain. The world seemed to have returned to peace. Only an old monk's voice sounded in a corner of Shura Temple that no one was paying attention to. Many people have died again. It's time to collect the corpses. Avicii hell. Wu Dao's true body knew that with his cultivation realm, he would not be able to survive in Avicii hell or minor hell. His only chance and hope was the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. This was the cultivation technique of Emperor Avicii back then, and Avicii hell was forged from Emperor Avicii's body. There might be some kind of strange connection between the two. Therefore, the moment Wu Dao's true body was swallowed by the Avicii gate, he began to chant the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. However, after entering the Avicii hell, Wu Dao's true body was stunned. His 5 senses and spiritual perception had all disappeared. He could not see anything, not even darkness. He could not distinguish between darkness and light. He could not feel the passage of time. His entire body seemed to be floating. There was nothing around him. It was empty, and he could not feel the existence of space. Around him, there was only an endless sense of loneliness. Wu Dao's true body chanted the Prajna Nirvana Sutra loudly, and even used a sound domain mystic technique, but he could not hear his own voice. The surroundings were silent, and there was no other sound. Wu Dao's true body and Qinglian's true body had long lost contact. Long after he fell from Taiwei Mountain into Avicii hell, he had lost contact with Qinglian's true body. At this moment, Wu Dao's true body suddenly felt a burning sensation spreading from inside to outside. Wu Dao's true body could not hold it in, and let out a painful cry. This was a flame that came from the Avicii hell. Not only did it burn the flesh of the body, it also burned the essence spirit of Wu Dao's true body. This flame was even more terrifying and domineering than the karmic fire. Most importantly, these flames contained a type of true intent of pain that was sufficient to cause one to go mad. Back then, in order to forge the Avicii hell, the Emperor Avicii gathered the painful wills of millions of living beings and fused them into his body to form this world. Anyone who entered the Avicii hell would have to endure the pain and torture of millions of living beings. There was no space, and no space for those who suffered. As long as one entered the Avicii hell, the Avicii hellfire would appear in their bodies, and they would suffer eternal pain without any interruption. Book Residence Reading Website. Chapter 23:15. Wu Dao's true body had witnessed the scenes of the 16 minor hells personally, be it the pain of digging out one's heart and lungs, or removing the copper brand from one's brain. It was not even 1,000th of the pain of the Avicii hellfire. What sort of feeling was it when the extreme pain of millions of living beings gathered together? Wu Dao's true body could not withstand it either, and wanted to cry out. The most terrifying thing was that in the Avicii hellfire, one had to endure the pain endlessly until one's lifespan was exhausted. In the Avicii hellfire, even if one could not withstand the pain, they could not commit suicide. What was even more frightening was that the hellfire would burn the essence spirit directly. The pain on the essence spirit was 100 or 1,000 times more intense than the pain on the body. Before long, Wu Dao's true body could not withstand the pain and even fainted. However, right after, he was tormented awake by an even more intense burning pain. Maintaining his consciousness, he endured the painful will of the Avicii hellfire once more. After a while, Wu Dao's true body fainted from the pain once more. However, he woke up before long and endured the pain over and over again. He was in eternal pain without a break. Wu Dao's true body finally experienced the terror of the Avicii hellfire. For any living being that entered the Avicii hellfire, death was a form of release. In fact, that thought even flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's true body for a moment. However, he threw those thoughts to the back of his mind and defended his Dao heart to the death. If not for the trial of the Dao heart staircase, and the fact that he had not condensed level 10 to strengthen his heart as Wu Dao's true body would definitely not have been able to survive in the Avicii hellfire. Before long, his Dao heart would have collapsed. While Wu Dao's true body endured the pain, he tried his best to maintain his consciousness and composure. The pain was unbearable and unstoppable. It was a fact that he could not change, and could only accept. He did not know how he could leave this place either. No matter where he went in the Avicii hellfire, the pain would accompany him at all times, and the hellfire would never be extinguished. Wu Dao's true body had not given up yet. He thought of a bold idea. Since Wu Dao's furnace could refine all divine arts and nurture all scriptures, why couldn't he try to fuse this hellfire into his own body? Back in Tianhuang mainland, Wu Dao's true body had only managed to refine a wisp of tribulation fire through the heavenly tribulation after several tribulation transcendences. And now, Wu Dao's main body had decided to try refining the hellfire in his body. Wu Dao's main body had a huge advantage. His primordial spirit, which was also his martial soul, was a ball of flame. Therefore, Qin Lai's nascent spirit and hellfire were of the same kind in terms of origin. Of course, his martial spirit fire was too weak. Wu Dao's true body tried to refine the hellfire for the first time. Just as his martial spirit's fire appeared, it was engulfed by the hellfire. His primordial spirit was once again subjected to endless torment. Wu Dao's true body continued to try. He could not sense the passage of time, or the changes in his environment. He could only attempt to refine the hellfire continuously, even if it was just a wisp. During this period of time, Wu Dao's true body fainted countless times, and failed countless times. He could no longer remember. It was almost as though it was a habit for him, a form of persistence. He would faint from the pain of refining the hellfire. Immediately after, he would wake up and refine it once more, and so on. After an unknown period of time, Wu Dao's true body finally conjured a weak wisp of flame, after channeling his primordial spirit. It was identical to the hellfire in his body, and had the same aura. Of course, His cultivation realm was too low, and the hellfire he conjured was far less powerful than the flames in the Avicii hell. There was no way it could fight against it. Even so, Wu Dao's true body was excited and delighted. Although the additional wisp of hellfire could not help him escape the Avicii hell, it could allow him to refine Sutra secret skills better. Over the years, Wu Dao's true body had collected many sutras and secret skills. During this period of time, he had also seen the Forbidden Sutra, the Nirvana Sutra, through Qinglian's true body. However, just relying on his martial soul fire, calamity fire, red lotus karmic fire, and dragon phoenix flames was not enough to refine the Forbidden Sutra and some obscure ancient texts. Therefore, Wu Dao's true body found it difficult to comprehend the essence of these ancient texts. But now, with the addition of a wisp of hellfire, the martial arts furnace had become even more powerful. Its smelting power had skyrocketed, and even the ancient and forbidden scriptures that he found difficult to understand before had all been smelted into it. During this period of refining hellfire, Wu Dao's true body had made another discovery. It could be considered a blessing in disguise. Originally, his body had been contaminated by Bo Sun's demonic aura. His bones, flesh, and organs had all been demonized. With his strength, he was completely unable to remove the demonic aura. However, in the Avicii hell, after being repeatedly burned by hellfire, the remaining demonic aura in his body had been completely burned away. Of course, there was no heaven-earth yuan qi in the Avicii hell. His injuries showed no signs of healing. The 9 fate wheels had been shattered into pieces by Bo Sun and floated in his body. Wu Dao's true body refined the ancient sutras while comprehending and deducing Wu Dao's techniques. Although he had fallen into the Avicii hell and was unable to leave, suffering endless pain, he still had the heart of Wu Dao. He did not give up on deducing Wu Dao's techniques and advanced on this great Dao with great difficulty. This was the meaning of Wu Dao's true body's existence. This was his Dao. In fact, thousands of techniques would inevitably converge to one Dao. For example, the immortal Dao, Buddhist Dao, and demonic Dao had different cultivation techniques, but their realms were similar. After going through the mystic, earth and heavenly essence realms, they would fuse into one and enter the true self realm to condense a Dao fruit before being conferred the title of king at the grotto heaven realm. In other words, even if Wu Dao's true body condensed his fate will into a Dao fruit, it was possible. However, he did not want to give up just like that. Although they would inevitably converge to one Dao in the end, before that, he had to perfect Wu Dao as much as possible. After an unknown period of time, perhaps a few months or a few centuries, a spark of inspiration appeared in the mind of Wu Dao's true body. As time passed by and countless sutras were refined by Wu Dao's furnace, the spark of inspiration shone brighter. Wu Dao's true body was enlightened. In fact, the greatest difference between Wu Dao and the immortal Dao, demonic Dao and Buddhist Dao was already obvious when Wu Dao was created. The immortal Dao, demonic Dao and Buddhist Dao absorbed the spirit qi and essence qi of heaven and earth to cultivate and comprehend, borrowing the power of heaven and earth to fight. However, Wu Dao was originally created for cultivators without spirit roots. Every step of Wu Dao was to cultivate himself. After the heavenly essence realm, the immortal Dao, Buddhist Dao and demonic Dao would condense their lifetime of cultivation into a Dao fruit in their consciousness. Wu Dao's true body would attempt to imprint the Dao skills of the 9 fate wheels onto his bones to continue strengthening himself and eventually condense the true Wu Dao body. The immortal Dao, Buddhist Dao and demonic Dao would condense their Dao fruits, while Wu Dao would forge his Dao body. The next realm after Wu Dao was the true martial realm. Book guest residence reading website. Chapter 23:16. When Wu Dao's original body figured it out, he felt that Wu Dao's future was no longer hazy. Behind the heavy fog, rays of bright light shone through and shone into his heart. He didn't need to do anything. The 9 fragments of the fate wheels automatically turned into mysterious runes, condensing Wu Dao's will and Wu Dao's will. They flowed in his body and wrapped around every bone. The bones of the martial Dao body were immersed in these mysterious purple runes. After an unknown period of time, mysterious runes gradually appeared on the bones, as if they were engraved on them. At first it was only a shallow layer, but as time went by, the runes on every bone became clearer, as if they had been deeply engraved and integrated with the bones. It was impossible to erase them. During this long process, the pain in the hell of Avicii was still tormenting Wu Dao's original body. He would still be tormented by the pain until he fainted. But every time he woke up, Wu Dao's original body would pull himself together and continue to engrave runes on his bones while enduring the endless pain, forging a Dao body. This was his Dao. No matter how much pain he had to endure, he had to continue walking. If the pain in the hell of Avicii was inflicted on others, they would have collapsed and their Dao heart would have collapsed, no matter what their cultivation was. And Wu Dao's original body was at the end of his rope in the hell of Avicii. Under the immense pain and suffering, he perfected Wu Dao and created the Dao of the next level. Wu Dao's original body couldn't feel the passage of time. There was no one around him and no sound. He was only forging and polishing his Dao body. Finally, at a certain moment, all the runes in the 9 fate wheels and all the will of Wu Dao's Dao had been engraved on the bones of Wu Dao's original body. At this moment, Wu Dao's original body felt that he had broken through a bottleneck, a barrier, and reached a new level. Wu Dao's Dao body had just been formed. Wu Dao himself had already stepped into the true martial realm. Generally speaking, when a cultivator of the immortal, demonic, or Buddhist path stepped into the realm of true self, a heavenly tribulation would descend. The 59 heavenly tribulation was the lowest, and the 99 heavenly tribulation was the highest. Although Wu Dao had taken a different path, and was completely different from the immortals, Buddhists, and fiends, Wu Dao's main body had also broken through a certain barrier. Under normal circumstances, it would also attract a heavenly tribulation. However, Wu Dao's main body waited for a long time, but did not sense any aura of the heavenly tribulation. There was only one possibility. The Avicii abyssal hell could even isolate the senses of the heavenly tribulation. Wu Dao's true body looked inside and saw that on his bones, every rune was flashing with a purple halo. On the surface of every bone, there were fine purple flames burning. These purple flames were constantly tempering his body, baptizing his bloodline, and burning away all the impurities in his bloodline. When his bloodline, body, and organs were all baptized by these purple flames, it meant that the true Wu Dao's Dao body had reached greater mastery. At that time, every inch of his flesh, every drop of blood, and even every strand of hair on his body would contain the terrifying will of Wu Dao's dermic formulation. He would be able to shake heaven and earth with a single move. This true Wu Dao's Dao body would be invincible and defeat all true self-experts. At this thought, Wu Dao's main body was originally excited, but he calmed down in an instant. So what if he was invincible in the true self realm? He was trapped in the Avicii abyssal hell, and could not get out at all. Even a terrifying expert like Emperor Bosun, who could escape from the Avicii abyssal hell, would not dare to step into this place. Even if he could deduce Wu Dao's dermic formulation realm, even if he could deduce Wu Dao's next dermic formulation realm, so what? He could only stay here and endure endless pain and torture until his lifespan ran out. Wu Dao's main body suddenly smiled. Even so, he would not give up. Since he was trapped here, he would use the remaining time to deduce Wu Dao's dermic formulation, because he knew that if it was possible, he might still have a chance to leave this place. Wu Dao's main body did not know when it would be, so he could only wait patiently. Time flew. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years had passed since the 10,000-year conference. Zixian Immortal Kingdom, Royal Palace Library. At the top of the building, a plain-looking woman with light makeup was half leaning and half lying on a bamboo chair. Her hair was tied up with a ribbon and casually draped behind her back. The plain-clothed woman held an ancient book in her hands and read it with concentration. At this moment, a series of footsteps came from downstairs. Immediately after, a maidservant walked up to the plain-clothed woman's side and brewed a pot of tea for her. Then she said softly, "Princess, take a rest." After a while, the plain-clothed woman seemed to come back to her senses and nodded. She slowly got up and took a sip of tea. Her gaze did not leave the ancient book in her hands as she asked casually, "Did anything big happen outside during this period of time?" "I heard that something big happened at the Pure Lands." The maidservant stuck out her tongue and said seriously. "Oh." The plain-clothed woman still did not raise her head. This maidservant of hers liked to be startled. She loved to make small things sound as if it was a big deal. The maidservant continued, "I heard that Emperor Bosun escaped from the Avicii hell and reappeared in the heaven realm." Hearing the words Emperor Bosun, the plain-clothed woman's expression changed slightly. She frowned slightly and raised her head. She said in a deep voice, "What happened? Tell me in detail." The maidservant said, "About 1,000 years ago, a group of people came from the demon territory. They broke through the Grand Taiwei Mountain and barged into the Avicii hell. It wasn't long before only a moon-devouring celestial wolf escaped from the Avicii hell. The others died in the Avicii hell." The plain-clothed woman frowned and said, "How is that possible? Who can escape from the Avicii hell? What's the cultivation of this heavenly wolf?" "It's said that it's only in the heaven immortal realm," the maidservant said. The plain-clothed woman frowned and fell into deep thought. The news came from the Pure Lands and was spread by many parties. Many details might be wrong, but the general idea should be correct. "Continue," the plain-clothed woman said. The maidservant said, "Later on, Emperor Bosun escaped from the Avicii hell. At that time, the 5 heavenly kings of the Nanjiang continent were alarmed. In the end, Emperor Bosun killed 4 of them and severely injured one of them. The Shira temple on the Grand Taiwei Mountain was reduced to ruins. The monks inside were all dead." After pausing for a moment, the maidservant said mysteriously, "I heard that the group of people who first entered the Avicii hell were the former subordinates of Emperor Bosun. This time, they broke into the Avicii hell and undid Emperor Bosun's seal, allowing this fiend to escape." The plain-clothed woman shook her head slightly. These speculations were mostly made up by busybodies and could not be accurate. However, this news was indeed shocking. "What happened later on?" the plain-clothed woman asked again. The maidservant said, "Later on, this matter alarmed the Emperor Lord experts of the Pure Lands of the Buddhist sections. I heard that they even fought with Emperor Bosun. The latter was no match for them and fled to the demon territory, never to appear again. I also heard that Emperor Bosun escaped from the Avicii hell and even caused a crack to appear in the Avicii hell. It can no longer trap anyone. Recently, many cultivators are preparing to head to the Avicii hell to explore and obtain an opportunity." End of chapter. Chapter 23:17. The plain-clothed woman frowned and fell into deep thought. Ever since the Avicii hell existed, it had experienced the longevity era. Countless years had passed since then. Countless experts had been buried there over such a long period of time, but no living being had ever come out alive. In other words, the Avicii hell was indeed an unimaginable treasure trove. Just the treasures left behind by the experts were countless. The maidservant said, "One can freely enter and exit the Avicii hell. I wonder how many experts will enter, and who will obtain the opportunities inside." "It's not that simple." The plain-clothed woman shook her head slightly and said, "The Avicii hell was established by the Empyrean Emperor. Even if it was destroyed by Emperor Bosun, it's definitely not a good place. Just the life forms of hell that are nurtured there are probably not many who can resist them." The maidservant asked blankly, "What life forms of hell?" The plain-clothed woman did not explain. She closed the ancient book in her hand and placed it on the bamboo chair beside her. The front of the book was written with the words, "Epic of Empyrean." This book was not a cultivation technique or secret art, but a biography. It recorded many major events that happened in the upper realm during the Epic of Empyrean, as well as the biographies of some experts. Among them, the most famous was naturally the Empyrean Emperor, who had founded an epoch. Therefore, the plain-clothed woman's understanding of the Empyrean Emperor far exceeded others. The plain-clothed woman stood up and paced back and forth. She muttered thoughtfully, "This matter is a little strange." "What do you mean? What's strange?" The maidservant asked again. The plain-clothed woman frowned and said, "This matter happened 1,000 years ago. Why did news only spread now? Emperor Bosun's appearance is no small matter. The implications are too great. The Buddhist sanctum probably suppressed it," answered the maidservant. "Since it was suppressed, why would such news suddenly spread?" The plain-clothed woman asked in return. The maidservant shrugged slightly and shook her head. The plain-clothed woman continued. "Furthermore, that's the Avicii hell after all, a forbidden land that even emperors fear. It has existed for so many years without any problems. Why would it be destroyed by Emperor Bosun's power?" The maidservant said, "Perhaps it's too old and couldn't withstand the corrosion of time." The plain-clothed woman shook her head slightly. She was about to speak when her heart stirred as she thought of something. If the prison-suppressing cauldron is in that person's hands, it means that there is no prison-suppressing cauldron in the Avicii hell. The plain-clothed woman muttered to herself. From the looks of it, it makes sense that Emperor Bosun rushed out of the Avicii hell and caused a crack to appear in the Avicii hell. "Princess, what are you talking about?" the maid asked curiously. "What suppressing hell cauldron? What person?" "Nothing." The plain-clothed lady changed the topic and asked, "Is Yunting still in seclusion?" "Yes." The maid nodded. "I'm preparing to make a trip to the Pure Lands. If he comes out of seclusion, don't tell him about this." "Ah!" The maid reacted and exclaimed, "Princess, you're not going to Avicii, are you? Didn't you just say that it was very dangerous inside?" "It is very dangerous, but I still have to go," the plain-clothed woman said. "I have many questions and curiosities towards the life of the Empyrean Emperor. Perhaps I can only find the answers in the ceaseless pain hell." The maidservant looked worried and said, "Princess, please bring more people this time." "No need. I'll go alone this time," the plain-clothed lady said. "If we really encounter danger in a place like the ceaseless pain hell, no matter how many people we bring, we'll die in vain. But if this news spreads, there will definitely be experts gathered there. When the time comes, who knows what kind of conflict will erupt in order to fight for the treasure. It's too dangerous," the maid said again. "No matter what, the ceaseless pain hell is one of the most dangerous forbidden lands since ancient times. Those who cultivate to the Empyrean Emperor realm have long lives and long lives. It's very difficult for any treasure to tempt them." The plain-clothed lady was extremely calm as she analyzed. "Therefore, they won't take the risk. As for immortal kings, they might not be in a hurry to enter. Most likely, they won't act rashly and will wait and see. I think that the cultivators who will enter the ceaseless pain hell this time should be sky immortals and true immortals. At this level, I'm not afraid of anything. Even if I'm not a match for them, I can escape unscathed." Although the plain-clothed lady had decided to go to the ceaseless pain hell, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Instead, she had analyzed all the dangers, including the possible situations, and planned before taking action. In addition, she knew a lot about the Empyrean Emperor, so she had some confidence. The plain-clothed lady saw that the maid beside her still had a worried expression and couldn't help but smile. "Don't worry. I'm only going this time to find some answers about the Empyrean Emperor. I'm not going to fight with them for the treasure. Even if they go crazy for the treasure, it has nothing to do with me." Heaven and Earth Academy, place of true teachings. A man and woman stood in front of a cave abode. From afar, they looked like a golden boy and jade girl. The man's figure was tall and straight, like an unsheathed sharp sword. His eyes were sharp, and there was a faint cold light flickering in them. His bearing was extraordinary. The woman was fairy-like and beautiful. She just stood there quietly, her clothes fluttering in the wind. Her entire person was in perfect harmony with the nearby vegetation, the distant mountain peaks, the clouds in the sky, and the dancing butterflies on her shoulders, forming an indescribably beautiful picture. The man was the true disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy, the Moonlight Sword Immortal. The woman was the painting immortal, Mo Qing. "Junior sister, why are you so stubborn and insist on going to the Avicii hell?" The Moonlight Sword Immortal frowned. "The Avicii hell is too dangerous. Even if there are cracks, there's a 90% chance of survival. What kind of status do you have? What kind of noble status do you have?" There's no need to take such a big risk. Fairy Mo Qing's expression was indifferent, and she remained silent. The Moonlight Sword Immortal continued, Junior sister, I'll do my best to help you get whatever you want, as long as you're willing to tell me. Thank you, Senior Brother Moonlight. Fairy Mo Qing said, but you can't get what I want. What? Why don't you say it? The Moonlight Sword Immortal said proudly. Fairy Mo Qing said, Senior Yudaozi's gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's expression froze. Fairy Mo Qing continued, Yudaozi was once a senior of the academy. The gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting contains 4 of his best works. It also contains his painting skills, painting techniques, and painting path. When I first entered the academy, a large part of the reason was because I liked Senior Yudaozi's paintings. But he's been dead for many years, and the gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting has long been lost. The Moonlight Sword Immortal said helplessly, There are countless paintings in the world. I can find you other masterpieces. That's not necessary. Fairy Mo Qing shook her head slightly. Senior Yudaozi went to the Avicii Hell alone to complete the 4th ghost painting, and never came out. He's already dead. The gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting should also be buried there. Chapter 23:18. The Moonlight Sword Immortal saw that Fairy Mo Qing was determined, and his expression darkened. A trace of gloom flashed across his eyes. He believed that Fairy Mo Qing knew his feelings. But after so many years, this junior sister had always been lukewarm towards him, and adhered to the etiquette of fellow disciples. The 2 of them did not even have the chance to take a step forward. The Moonlight Sword Immortal thought of Mo Qing's personality, and was not in a hurry. He did not force her. However, in these years, rumors about Fairy Mo Qing and Yang Ruoxu had spread far and wide. This made the Moonlight Sword Immortal very angry. His patience was also gradually wearing thin. He did not want to wait any longer. The Moonlight Sword Immortal turned around, and stood in front of Fairy Mo Qing. He looked at her affectionately and said gently, Junior sister, in these years, there have been many bad rumors about you in the outside world. I'm very angry and my heart aches for you. It's not like there's no way to resolve this matter. As long as I ask Master to help us become Dao companions, we can announce it to the world and send out wedding invitations. Naturally, we can clear your name, and those rumors will be dispelled. Fairy Mo Qing smiled gently and said, Thank you for your kindness, Senior Brother Moonlight. However, you don't have to do this. I rarely go out. I just stay here and study my painting Dao. No matter how many rumors there are in the outside world, I don't care. I'm innocent. Fairy Mo Qing's meaning was very clear. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was proud. It was rare for him to take the initiative to express his feelings. Now that he was rejected, he naturally could not continue to pester her. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was silent for a while. Suddenly he asked faintly, Junior sister, did you really go to the Avicii Great Hell for the deities, demons, immortals, and demons diagram? Of course. Fairy Mo Qing was slightly surprised. She asked in return, What else does Senior Brother Moonlight think? Ha! The Moonlight Sword Immortal turned to look at the forest in the distance. He smiled mockingly and said casually, Nothing. Since Junior sister has made up her mind, I can't persuade you anymore. I can only wish Junior sister a safe return. The Moonlight Sword Immortal cupped his hands, and said one more sentence before leaving expressionlessly. Fairy Mo Qing looked at the Moonlight Sword Immortal's back, and sighed softly in her heart. Although she was pure, she could feel the Moonlight Sword Immortal's feelings. However, she had always regarded the Moonlight Sword Immortal as her senior brother, and had no other intentions. Now that he had rejected the other party, Senior Brother Yuehua would definitely be extremely sad and disappointed. Thinking of this, Fairy Mo Qing's mood became somewhat complicated. Xiao Dai, did I do something wrong? Fairy Mo Qing lowered her head and murmured, Perhaps Senior Apprentice Brother Yuehua is the one destined for me. Perhaps I should become Dao companions with him. Actually, Senior Brother Yuehua is not a bad person. Not good. Hypocrite. Xiao Dai's voice was crisp and filled with a hint of disdain. He doesn't even dare to go with you when he knows you're going to the Avicii hell. If it's someone who truly cares about you, why would they let you go to a dangerous place alone? Fairy Emoching shook her head and said, Don't blame him. After all, we are from the same sect. How could I let him put himself in danger for me? Anyway, this person is not good, Xiao Dai said crisply. After a moment of silence, Fairy Emoching looked into the distance. Her eyes were a bit lost as she softly said, What is love? Why can't I feel it? You spend all your time on your paintings and rarely interact with others. Of course you can't feel the love of the mortal world. Xiao Dai seemed to be very experienced. If you travel more and meet more cultivators, you'll definitely meet someone you like. Like? Fairy Emoching tilted her head in confusion. She only liked mountains, rivers, plants, and paintings, but she had never liked anyone. She didn't know what it was like. It's like being moved, Xiao Dai explained. If you can meet someone who makes your heart beat faster, and you think about them day and night, then it's like. Fairy Emoching carefully thought about it. Up until now, she hadn't met anyone who could move her heart. However, there were quite a few paintings that made her heart beat faster. Xiao Dai, do you have someone you like? Why do you know so much? Fairy Emoching asked with a smile. I don't, Xiao Dai said. I've only heard about this from others. Fairy Emoching smiled. She chatted with Xiao Dai for a while, and felt a lot less annoyed. Normally, she lived and cultivated alone without any immortal servants by her side. She was used to being alone, and liked the quiet feeling. Over the years with Xiao Dai's company, although there were more voices, it made her smile a lot more. Oh right, Xiao Dai, there's something you haven't explained to me, Fairy Emoching said with a bit of blame. Why do you always go to the inner sect? After this ice butterfly was saved by her, it was cold to everyone, and didn't want anyone to get close to it. However, it didn't have any conflict with an inner sect disciple. She heard that the inner sect disciple had been taken in by her master as a disciple in name. If he reached the true self realm, he would be able to become her master's disciple in name. That person has an aura that makes me feel very close to him, Xiao Dai said hesitantly. Don't tell me you like him? Fairy Emoching asked jokingly. No, Xiao Dai hurriedly explained. That person has an aura that's very similar to the Yao Emperor of my race. It's so strange. Yao Emperor? Fairy Emoching was surprised. Only Yao Emperors could become Yao Emperors. That was definitely a high and mighty existence that stood at the peak of the upper world. How could an inner sect disciple of the academy be related to him? Moreover, he was a Yao Emperor far away in the great desolate domain. That Yao Emperor is the pride of my race. She's the expert that I respect, admire, and worship the most. Even if I have to die for her, I'm willing. Speaking of this Yao Emperor, Xiao Dai's eyes glowed with fanaticism and pride. Every monarch will be respected by his clansmen, said Qin Wentian. Fairy Emoching nodded. No, Xiao Dai shook her head and said. She's different from other emperors. She's the pride of my race, the hope of my race, and the pride of the entire Yao race. For some reason, Xiao Dai seemed to become excited when mentioning this Yao Emperor. Our butterfly race was extremely weak when we were born, Xiao Dai said. Xiao Dai replied. Even though a few butterflies with powerful bloodlines have appeared during this period of time, like the monarch butterfly bloodline, they were still unable to contend against the other races. Fairy Emoching wasn't unfamiliar with this. The butterfly race was indeed one of the weakest races. They were far weaker than humans. Xiao Dai continued. However, this Yao Emperor of my race changed the status of the butterfly race among the 10,000 races by herself. She gave us a place in the great desolate domain, and even the upper world. As long as this Yao Emperor of my race is here, the butterfly race isn't a weak race. Fairy Emoching opened her mouth slightly in shock, changing the status of the butterfly race among the 10,000 races by herself. Other emperors couldn't compare to her. End of chapter. Chapter 23:19. After the moonlight sword immortal left Emoching's cave abode, she went straight home. Along the way, her expression was cold, and the sharpness emanating from her body almost tore through the void. A few core disciples saw the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and did not dare to approach her. They only cupped their hands and bowed, then stayed far away, afraid of offending the Moonlight Sword Immortal. Not long after, the Moonlight Sword Immortal arrived at her cave abode. The other core disciple, Shaoli, had been waiting at the door for a long time. "Senior brother, what's the matter?" Shaoli saw that the Moonlight Sword Immortal's expression was not right, and went forward to ask. The Moonlight Sword Immortal did not say a word. She just walked straight into the cave abode with a solemn expression. The door opened automatically, and Shaoli hurriedly followed. After returning to the cave abode and sitting down, an immortal servant had already served tea. She carefully poured it and placed it in front of the two core disciples, then bowed her head and left. The Moonlight Sword Immortal picked up the fragrant tea in front of her and drank it in one gulp. After a long silence, she said, "Junior sister Mo Qing wants to go to the Avicii Hell." Shaoli said, "I've also heard about the news of the Avicii Hell. This time, many desperados have been alerted, cultivators from the Pure Lands, the Nine Heavens Immortal Domain, and the Demon Domain have all moved. However, the Avicii Hell is not a good place. It's too dangerous. As one of the four great fairies, senior sister Mo Qing doesn't have to take such a risk, right? I also advised her not to take the risk, but she insisted on going." The Moonlight Sword Immortal was a little angry. Although she's usually quiet and weak, she's not weak at all. She doesn't listen to me at all. What's in the Avicii Hell that senior sister Mo Qing wants to go there? Shaoli asked again. She said she wants to find Udaozi's gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting. The Moonlight Sword Immortal sneered and replied, "That's possible. Senior sister Mo Qing is obsessed with painting. For the gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting, she might go to the Avicii Hell to explore." "Humph." The Moonlight Sword Immortal's face darkened. She said coldly, "Do you really think she went to the Avicii Hell for the gods, immortals, and demon painting? Isn't that so?" Shaoli was stunned for a moment, his expression blank. The Moonlight Sword Immortal said coldly, "Young Ruoxu was just crippled, and his primordial spirit was severely injured. Junior sister Mo Qing must have gone to the Avicii Hell to look for the fretless fruit to heal young Ruoxu." Ah! A look of realization flashed across Shaoli's eyes. The Moonlight Sword Immortal clenched her fists and said coldly, "She thinks I can't guess and still wants to hide it." "Senior brother, what should we do?" Shaoli asked. "Should we ask Qing Yin and the others to do something and kill young Ruoxu secretly?" "There's no need." The Moonlight Sword Immortal sneered. "The carefree tree has been broken for so many years. Finding the carefree fruit in the Avicii Hell is harder than finding a needle in a haystack. I'll wait for her return at the academy. I want to see her in despair." The Moonlight Sword Immortal suddenly laughed and said faintly, "Junior sister Mo Qing returned empty-handed, and young Ruoxu was seriously injured. The two of them parted forever. I don't want to miss such a good show." Looking at the Moonlight Sword Immortal's smile, Shaoli suddenly felt a chill. Senior brother Yuehua's hatred for senior sister Mo Qing had already exceeded his imagination. He did not understand why senior brother Yuehua, who had previously admired and loved senior sister Mo Qing, would hate her to the core in the blink of an eye and have such vicious thoughts. In a cave abode in the inner sect of the academy, Fang Qingyun, Tang Peng, and Yin Bingying were gathered here. "Senior brother Fang, I heard that young Ruoxu was traveling outside and meddling in other people's business. In the end, he was seriously injured and almost died outside." Tang Peng was a little excited and said, "I heard that he is now lying in the cave abode like a dead dog. He is already crippled. This saves us the trouble of taking action." "Yes. If senior brother Fang were to take action, you are not allowed to fight to the death on the sword discourse arena. At most, you can defeat him and teach him a lesson," Yin Bingying said. "There are not as many rules outside as in the academy. I heard that his essence spirit was seriously injured. He was lucky to be able to escape with his life intact." Fang Qingyan did not speak. He only smiled faintly and listened to their discussion. A trace of pride flashed across the depths of his eyes. It was only now that he smiled and suddenly said, Do you really think that he was lucky to be able to escape with his life intact? Ah! Tang Peng was stunned. Before he could react, Fang Qingyan said again. Do you really think that Yang Ruox's accident this time was just an accident? Tang Peng's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Fang Qingyan with wide eyes and said in a low voice, could it be that senior brother was the one who took action this time? I did not take action personally. I just planned it. Fang Qingyan said. The people who took action this time were all top experts of the major forces. Pang Yi of the Pang clan, Duke Yuanzhua and his executioner guards, Sky Immortal Gui Yuan of the Flying Immortal Sect, and Duke Xie Tianhong of the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom. I only told them about Yang Ruox's whereabouts and asked them to take action. I watched the battle from the side. After a pause, Fang Qingyan laughed again and said, I have to say that the battle was very exciting. Yan Bingying frowned slightly and did not speak. Although she was extremely disgusted with Yang Ruoxu because of the Moonlight Sword Immortal and the others, she still felt a little conflicted about asking outsiders to take action against her fellow disciples. Tang Peng, on the other hand, was excited. So it was senior brother who planned everything behind the scenes. It was such a big move. No wonder. Since senior brother Yuanhua asked me to do so, I will do my best. Fang Qingyan smiled faintly. Tang Peng was a little confused and asked, Senior brother Fang, with so many experts taking action, how did you let Yang Ruoxa come back alive? That's what I meant. Fang Qingyan had a smile on his face. He didn't continue speaking, but he didn't continue. Why is that? Tang Peng thought for a long time, but could not figure it out. He frowned and asked. Yan Bingying said, perhaps senior brother Fang spared his life because he was from the same sect. Fang Qingyan shook his head slightly and said, I let him come back to deal with another person. Su Zimo. Tang Peng also reacted at this time and blurted out. That's right. Fang Qingyan nodded. What's the plan? Tang Peng asked. Although he realized that Fang Qingyan wanted to deal with Su Zimo, he could not think of how to make use of this opportunity. Fang Qingyan said, Su Zimo was accepted as an in-name disciple by the Patriarch. His status is much higher than Yang Ruox's. If we mobilize a large force to ambush him in the Divine Cloud continent, I'm worried that it will attract the Patriarch's attention. Therefore, if you want to deal with Su Zimo, it's best to do it outside the Divine Cloud celestial realm. The further the better. Yang Ruox's primordial spirit is seriously injured. It won't be long before Su Zimo receives the news. There are very few immortal herbs that can heal primordial spirit injuries. The fretless fruit is one of them. Hearing this, Tang Peng's eyes lit up. He continued Fang Qingyan's words and continued. Recently, news came from the Pure Lands. A crack has appeared in the Avicii Hell, and there are countless treasures inside. The fretless fruit might be there. Therefore, senior brother's goal is to use Yang Ruox's primordial spirit injury to lure Su Zimo to the Avicii Hell and kill him there. Fang Qingyan smiled and did not say anything. It was a tacit agreement. Tang Peng could not help but clap his hands and exclaim in admiration. This is a series of linked plans. 2 birds with 1 stone. While dealing with Yang Ruoxu, we'll set a hook to get rid of Su Zimo to prevent future trouble. Senior brother, this plan of yours can really be called strategizing an attempt and determining victory from 1,000 miles away. I think your wisdom is not inferior to the Patriarch's. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.